2, the ultimate one-on-one competition challenging for the fight money, has come back after the first spectacular season in 2021. Fight Club will begin in a bigger scale right here on this marvelous stage with the best players around the world. 10 challengers, but only one champion. The fierce battle will soon begin until the last one stands to become the champion of Fight Club Season 2.
Sou o Action da Black Dragons. Acho muito legal ter sido invitado para esse torneio, né, que normalmente é o destaque de cada equipe e vai ser muito legal disputar.
Olá, meu nome é Silva, eu sou jogador da Extense Game. Se eu ganhar o prêmio do Fight Club, eu vou sair para curtir com meus amigos aqui em Jeju.
Olá pessoal, meu nick é Goken, eu sou da equipe da Imperial. Ano passado a premiação era pouca, agora aumentou e me deu mais vontade de ganhar.
Xin chào mọi người, mình là Phát Con đến từ đội tuyển Ranking Gaming. Đây là giải đấu rất là thú vị vì mọi người có thể show up được cái kỹ năng của mình.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, mình là Đô La, mình đến từ đội tuyển Senegal. Cảm giác của em khi mà được tham gia giải Fight Club thì cảm giác của em rất là vui.
Hello, I'm SGJ Robin, attacker of the team. Kinakabahan ako sobra. Gagawin ko ang lahat ng aking makakaya.
Hello, I'm Awesome and I'm playing for Lazarus. I'm very happy because it's a great opportunity to play in the Fight Club in the Season 2.
أنا اسمي حورس، أنا بلعب لفريق تيم ميسي. لقد تفاجأت في البداية من هذه المسابقة، لكن الآن سوف أخذها كتحدي إنني سوف أنتصر في هذه المسابقة.
السلام عليكم، أنا بيفا من أنوبيس جيمنج. ما كنتش عارف أصلا إن أنا أخش في فايت كلاب، بس هم اختاروني عشان بطلع الإيس وكده وبكاري التيم.
Xin chào mọi người, tôi là Lucas đến từ team Slipy hay là với tư cách là vô địch của mùa 1 Fight Club thì tôi thấy lần này tôi được tham gia thì thấy là rất bình thường và tôi rất là tự tin sẽ giành được chức vô địch lần thứ hai.
Now let me walk you through the main rules of Fight Club Season 2. 10 challengers will go through a total of 3 rounds to determine the last winner to win the fight money and also the champion title. The matchup for the first round will be decided through the random draw. Once the first round ends, the loser will have his turn to choose his opponent from the first round winner. Challengers who got defeated twice will be eliminated from the competition, and the challenger with 2 wins will have his turn to choose his opponent to play against. The first challenger securing 3 wins will be granted to advance to the final stage, but the remaining players will continue the ultimate challenge to advance as well. The ultimate duel will continue until we reach the 4 remaining survivors who will play in the final stage. Every fight will be played in a best-of-3 series on compound, and the last challenger who will be the champion will be granted to earn $3,000 US. Everyone, stay tuned to witness the champion of Fight Club Season 2. Who will be the top 4 survivors advancing to the 3rd round? Let's find out. This was your host, Seven. Thank you so much.
Tôi được vào đội trước đó thì tôi cảm giác rất là nhẹ, đẹp, màu dáng các thứ rất là ok, rất là đẹp và cảm giác tôi bắn ok đấy.
So, fierce battle is about to begin then Fight Club. Now we are going to start a random draw for the competition. So the first match is between Awesome and Fatcons from Vietnam.
So your first was against Patcons from the ranking games. When you first heard of that, how did you feel?
So Since I... Oh, wait. What was his in-game name?
Fatcon.
Is it his name Pecons? Pecons?
Tên của tôi không phải là Fitcon mà là Fatcon.
Round 1. Headshot.
After the match, I was excited that I won my first match.
Lúc đấy em rất là cay cú và em quyết định là sẽ bích bạn ấy để gỡ lại lần 2.
So the next match is between, let's see, Action from Brazil, BaiSha from Egypt.
Sinceramente não conheço muito o jogo dele. Ele acabou de chegar, não sei qual era a estatística dele lá na CF West, mas pra mim é só mais um.
انا عارف اللي هو كل واحد طلع في التيم بيطلع عشان بيبقى الايس وبيكاري التيم بتاعه، بس انا ما كنتش اعرفهم وكنت داخل على اساس اني اكسب. انا شايف اني اسهل حد في فايت كلاب كان اكشن.
BaiSha, não conheço, mas acho que vai ser fácil.
Round 1. Shots.
انا كسبت 2-0 فمش شايف ان في حد يقدر يكسب.
Agora eu conheço ele e posso derrotar da próxima vez. Me aguarde que eu vou te derrotar.
So match number 3, guys, is between...
That's a championship point. All gamers will be.
Thưa quý vị, từ nhà thi đấu quân khu 7 chúng tôi xin được gửi lời chào nồng nhiệt đến tất cả quý vị đang cùng tham gia theo dõi ngày thi đấu đầu tiên vòng bảng của CFS Summer Championship năm 2023 được tổ chức bởi Spygate Entertainment và VTC Online.
Quý vị thân mến, tôi là MC Đăng Khương và bạn dẫn của tôi là MC Thu Hà. Ngày hôm nay chúng tôi rất vinh dự khi được đồng hành cùng với tất cả quý vị xuyên suốt các trận đấu kịch tính và đầy hấp dẫn của CROSSFIRE.
Và thưa quý vị, nếu quý vị không thể có mặt trực tiếp để cùng theo dõi tại nhà thi đấu quân khu 7 thành phố Hồ Chí Minh, Việt Nam thì quý vị cũng đừng lo lắng, bởi chúng tôi có thể mời quý vị theo dõi thông qua nền tảng livestream trực tuyến của chúng tôi, thông qua fanpage, Facebook, YouTube, hoặc là quý vị có thể theo dõi thông qua Twitter cùng chúng tôi. Và còn gì tuyệt vời hơn khi vừa được theo dõi những trận đấu mãn nhãn kịch tính và vừa được bình luận và chia sẻ niềm vui này cùng với cộng đồng CROSSFIRE, thưa quý vị. Và dù quý vị đang có mặt tại trường quay hay quý vị đang theo dõi thông qua một màn ảnh nhỏ hay một màn ảnh lớn hơn, thì tất cả chúng ta cùng chung một niềm đam mê, cùng chung một nhịp đập cùng với CROSSFIRE, có đúng không ạ?
Thưa quý vị, đến tranh tài trong ngày hôm nay đó chính là 8 đội tuyển xuất sắc nhất đến từ 4 khu vực sẽ tham gia thi đấu tại CFS Summer Championship 2023 Việt Nam. Và thành tích chuyên nghiệp của họ thì không còn gì phải bàn cãi. Họ là ai? Là những đại diện đến từ Việt Nam,
Brazil,
Trung Quốc
và Philippines. Thưa quý vị, và ngay bây giờ hãy cùng nhau sẵn sàng để cùng chào đón trên sân khấu là những đại diện ngày hôm nay quý vị đang rất mong chờ. Và trước hết chúng tôi cũng xin được trân trọng kính mời lên sân khấu ngay lúc này là sự hiện diện của ông Lê Việt Hòa, giám đốc VTC Online sẽ cùng tiến về sân khấu. Xin trân trọng kính mời ông ạ. Thưa quý vị, một tràng vỗ tay dành cho ông Lê Việt Hòa, giám đốc VTC Online. Thưa quý vị, và ngay lúc này chúng tôi cũng xin được trân trọng kính mời lên sân khấu là sự hiện diện đến từ những đội thi đấu của năm nay. Đầu tiên, hãy cùng dành một tràng vỗ tay nồng nhiệt để cùng chào đón Pacific Macta, nhà vô địch của CFS Master năm 2023 Summer Finals. Thưa quý vị, một tràng vỗ tay thật lớn dành cho Pacific Macta.
Xin được cảm ơn các thành viên của đội tuyển Pacific Macta. Và ngay bây giờ, xin được mời đại diện đầu tiên đến từ Brazil, Vasco ESPORTS, áo quân của CFPL 2023 mùa đầu tiên.
Và có thể nhìn thấy trên sân khấu đại diện từ phía VTC Online đang trao tặng những phần quà động viên và khích lệ gửi đến cho đội tuyển ngày hôm nay Vasco ESPORTS. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thưa quý vị, và tiếp theo chúng tôi cũng xin được mời quý vị hãy dành một tràng vỗ tay nồng nhiệt để cùng chào đón đại diện của đội thứ hai từ Brazil. Xin mời Imperial. Quý vị thân mến, thành tích của Imperial là vị trí thứ 3 tại CFS Summer Championship năm 2022 và là nhà vô địch của CFPL năm 2023 mùa 1. Xin được cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều.
Thank you. Và ngay lúc này chúng ta hãy cùng nhau chào đón đại diện đầu tiên đến từ nước chủ nhà Việt Nam, Ranking ESPORTS, áo quân của CFPL 2023 mùa đầu tiên.
Thưa quý vị, và đó chính là Ranking ESPORTS. Một lần nữa xin được cảm ơn các bạn và chúc các bạn sẽ có một phần thi đấu đầy kịch tính và mãn nhãn ở phía trước. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Cũng xin được cảm ơn sự hiện diện của ông Lê Việt Hòa, giám đốc VTC Online ạ. Xin được mời ông sẽ quay trở về chỗ ngồi vinh dự của mình.
Thưa quý vị, và ngay lúc này chúng tôi xin được trân trọng kính mời ông Hoàng Nhật Linh, Phó Giám đốc VTC Online sẽ tiến lên sân khấu để có thể trao tặng những món quà đến với các đội tuyển xuất sắc trong ngày hôm nay. Xin được trân trọng kính mời ông.
Thưa quý vị, từ khu vực khán đài đang tiến về sân khấu là sự hiện diện của ông Hoàng Nhật Linh, Phó Giám đốc VTC Online. Và xin mời quý vị hãy dành cho ông Hoàng Nhật Linh một tràng vỗ tay lớn hơn, dài hơn và nồng nhiệt hơn nữa đi ạ.
Và ngay lúc này, chúng ta hãy cùng nhau chào đón lên sân khấu đại diện thứ hai đến từ nước chủ nhà Việt Nam. Hãy cùng chào đón Colorhouse Last Legends. Thưa quý vị, Colorhouse Last Legends với thành tích là Áo quân của CFS Summer Championship 2022 và là nhà vô địch CFPL 2023.
Một lần nữa xin được cảm ơn và xin chúc cho Colorhouse Last Legends sẽ có cuộc thi đấu đầy thành công trong ngày hôm nay. Xin cảm ơn ạ. Và tiếp theo chúng tôi xin được mời quý vị chào đón đội tuyển đến từ Trung Quốc, On Gamers. Quý vị thân mến, chiến lược của On Gamers đã giúp họ trở thành nhà vô địch của CFS Summer Championship năm 2022 và là nhà vô địch của CFPL mùa 22. Chúc cho họ sẽ có một phần thi đấu đầy mãn nhãn, kịch tính và thành công ở phía trước. Xin cảm ơn ạ.
Thank you. Và ngay bây giờ xuất hiện trên sân khấu sẽ là BaiSha Gaming, nhà vô địch CFS 2022 Grand Finals và Áo quân của CFPL mùa 22.
Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều ạ. Và cuối cùng, xin mời quý vị hãy cùng chào đón trên sân khấu là sự xuất hiện và chào sân đến từ GV ESPORTS, là nhà vô địch của CFWL 2023 mùa 1. Xin mời! Xin được chúc cho GV ESPORTS sẽ có những trận cầu đầy thành công ở phía trước. Một lần nữa xin được cảm ơn quý vị rất nhiều. Và cũng xin được cảm ơn sự hiện diện đến từ ông Hoàng Nhật Linh, Phó Giám đốc VTC Online. Xin mời ông quay trở về chỗ ngồi của mình ạ. Xin cảm ơn.
Thank you.
Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là màn chào sân đầy mãn nhãn đến từ 8 đội tuyển tham dự CFS Summer Championship năm 2023. Và chúng ta hãy cùng nhau chúc cho CFS Summer Championship năm 2023 thành công tốt đẹp với thành tích vô cùng ấn tượng ở phía trước quý vị nhé. Và ngay bây giờ, để chúc cho một mùa giải thành công thì xin mời quý vị hãy cùng dành cho nhau và dành cho sân khấu của CFS Summer Championship năm 2023 một tràng vỗ tay thật nồng nhiệt.
of course, once again to CFS 2023. We're here in Vietnam. Kyle with me. It's always great to have you alongside me, Kyle. And looking forward to kicking things off here at the CFS Summer Championship. I think it's going to be a fantastic event.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I know a lot of these teams have worked really hard to prepare for this one, and we've got some of the best here. So it's going to be a really intense set of matches, and the format as well, very thorough. So it's really going to be up to these teams to prove they have what it takes.
Yeah, I guess that's the first sort of conversation that we have to have here is the format is kind of a brutal one, right? We've got 7 days of competition. We've got 12 best of threes over the first 4 days heading into those group stages. And, well, that it really doesn't leave much up to the imagination, I think, at the end of those 4 days.
Yeah, a lot of these teams in the past, they may have had a good best of one where they could come through, beat one of these top teams, but in a best of three, you really have to have almost a perfect performance to take down some of these stronger teams in the event. But you love to see it happen in a best of three nonetheless, because some of these could be huge upsets. But, you know, starting it, even with our first match of the day, you're going to have some incredible teams from all of these regions going head-to-head throughout the group stage alone.
I mean, is there really much of a conversation as to which teams are maybe coming in as favorites and which teams are coming in as underdogs? Has a whole lot really changed over the course of the last few years, or are we kind of still on that same trajectory that we have been for pretty much the entire history of CROSSFIRE Stars?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of teams are expecting the Chinese to be very dominant as usual, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of these regions, like Vietnam, like Brazil, have shown a lot of strength in recent history as well. So I think there is some potential on the table, but I think at the end of the day, everyone's looking at China as that team and region to beat overall.
What about Brazil? Obviously, they had a bit of an uptick over maybe 3-4 years ago, but has that slowed down a little bit?
It has slowed down a bit since their back-to-back CFS championships going to Brazil. They haven't been able to win just yet, but I'm hopeful they can do it again, because when you look at a team like Imperial, they've come close several times in recent history. But as we take a look here at the overview, a $300,000 prize for whoever is able to come through. So I think ultimately it's going to be a really tough test, but when you look at the pool of teams, you couldn't really ask for a better 8 teams going for this, because when I look at all 8 of these teams, it's really any team that could potentially come through, even though you have China as the favorites. These other regions are nothing to scoff at here.
Yeah, indeed. Look, I think obviously a bit of a gauntlet run to be made for sure. You talk about the fact that this is a 7-day competition. You talk about the fact that there's no best of ones. You have to play best of threes into best of fives as well. So even if you are able to survive the BO3s, like a BO5 is even a whole different ball game, right? It really does then test your mettle in pretty much the entirety of the map pool. I think that again is going to be another sort of hurdle that these teams have to get over the line. Here is just a quick update as to how the schedule does look for you guys at home that maybe aren't aware. So 21 to 24th of August, we're going to be heading through the group stage. So as we've mentioned, that is all best of threes. So 3 games a day, best threes every day for those first 4 days. And then heading into the weekend is when the playoffs kick off, and that'll be the top teams making it out of groups, obviously battling off in the best of fives. And so that's going to be a bit of a hurdle, but when we get there, we'll get to talking about that. For now, we should probably just break down what's happening in the group stage. Day 1 matches, obviously that's where we're at the moment. Those are the pertinent ones, I'd say, to touch on right now.
Yeah, I mean, these groups are going to be very interesting, especially when you consider there's no crossover region play within the group stage. So both Chinese teams split up, both Brazilian teams and both Vietnamese teams will be in separate groups, which means you've really got to show what you can do on the international stage already in the group stage. You're not going to have a lot of advantage in terms of playing maybe a team you are comfortable in your region, but looking at today's matchup specifically, we're starting off with some really big ones. I mean, just the first match already is going to be Imperial versus All Gamers. These are 2 teams that have been in the top 3 of this event already in their past before, so I'm expecting in this opening match to be one of the best of the group stage already just in day 1. Following that, we've got GV taking on BaiSha, another 2 strong teams going head-to-head, and then we'll close out day 1 here with Kara House taking on Pacific Macta. So really some exciting day 1 matches already.
Yeah, I can imagine at least for that 3rd match, there is certainly going to be a bit of a home crowd favorite, bit of an advantage going in the direction of Kara House. But for the first couple, yeah, interested to see which way the fans are going to go, or if they're going to go one way or the other even. I suppose that's a big question that we'll be answered later on. Now, we can touch on that first match. We can really start getting into the nitty-gritty of it. AG, Imperial, obviously, as you've mentioned, two quite storied teams within the history of CROSSFIRE. And, you know, we've sort of seen a lot of these individuals around for a very, very long time. But is one coming in as the favorite over the other? It would have to be All Gamers coming in as the favorite for this matchup. But by how much of a margin is that, really? That's the question I have for you.
Yeah, I feel like when I look at these two teams on paper, even though All Gamers is the favorite team here, if anybody was going to maybe take down All Gamers in the group stage, this has got to be one of the better teams with that potential to at least maybe overcome them if they're playing very, very well today. Because when you look at the history of CROSSFIRE, strong Brazilian teams have been kind of that one element China's had trouble dealing with in the past. So I feel like these guys, several of them have been in that position before, where they've been on the biggest stages and taken down a Chinese team, and this roster's got the young firepower of some of these younger players who haven't done that yet coming in as well to maybe elevate them coming into these next seasons as well. So I think while this one does favor AG, I still would give Imperial one of the best chances of maybe keeping things close, and potentially an upset here could be on the table if they bring their A game.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's obviously quite, as we've said, a few experienced individuals on that Imperial roster. I mean, Goken in particular seems like someone that I've seen getting brought up a lot, even in the conversations that have been with a couple of the Chinese players. I saw some interviews on the CROSSFIRE South Facebook, and they were sort of saying like Goken's someone that they're quite interested in seeing, you know, what he's going to be able to bring to the table. Maybe he's going to be like that threat for them, or he's the player that they want to play against. You know, so that's someone I suppose that we're going to have to kind of keep a bit of an eye on. But obviously, as far as Imperial and All Gamers are concerned, is this one we're sort of expecting maybe to go to all three maps, right? Considering if this is going to be potentially one of the closer matches. We'd almost be hoping that that would be the case. Otherwise, if it is ending up being a 2-0 for someone like All Gamers, then I guess that would be a little disappointing.
Yeah, for Imperial here, looking at how strong this group is especially, they feel like they've got to beat one of the powerhouse teams, whether it be Kara House or All Gamers, and I feel like All Gamers might be a good chance for them because they've got more experience actually beating Chinese teams than Vietnamese teams on their side. So I feel like for them, they're looking at this as a match they can definitely win, and they're going to be coming out fighting, I think, in this first map.
All right, well, those are going to be the questions that we do get to answer in just a moment, but I think we're getting ourselves ready and set up on the stage to welcome our teams. Let's go have a look. All right, welcoming Imperial to the stage, and as we've mentioned, these guys might be the giant slayers of the competition. I think, is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely fair to say. They've been in that position before. A lot of these guys have the potential to maybe do it again here, and this is one of the stages it's happened before in history as well. Black Dragons, they did it in Vietnam in the past, taking down a huge Chinese opponent, and Imperial, I can tell from their attitude, they're looking to try and do it again here and find a way for Brazilian CROSSFIRE to be back on top.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they're looking cool, calm and collected, no qualms at all on their side of the field. And, well, now we just have to meet AG. Well, All Gamers, I think a team with a lot to prove. They come in maybe with a bit of a disappointing result at the end of last year and a chance for revenge today.
Yeah, I think for All Gamers, they're looking at this as their event to win. They don't want to have any conversations otherwise about them being the best team in the world. And I think this is a team that's hungry to prove they've got what it takes on the international stage. They come in as the champions of their region, taking down BaiSha Gaming there, but they're looking to bigger and better events for themselves to really show what they can do. And I definitely expect a lot out of this team.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's going to be good practice as well for later on in this year, where I think you'd imagine a lot of these teams will be looking toward playing in the CFS Grand Finals for 2023. This is almost a prelude, or, you know, I suppose it's fair to say to that. It is going to be bigger than where we're at right now, but this is sort of a nice way to kind of ease yourself in if you get a good bit of run of form on LAN, you know, in the live environment. I think that can go a long way in building up that confidence going into the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely looking at these two teams, I think they're looking at this first match as not necessarily a decider by any means, but a chance to get really comfortable with what they're up against in this competition, because these are two of the teams that I'd argue are close to the best you're going to see in this event. And knowing they've been top 3 coming into it before, I think we're going to see a top 3 matchup already here in day number 1.
All right, well, we'll take a look at the data coming up here for Imperial. Obviously, they come out as top dogs in their domestic region, but how is that going to translate into the global competition? How does that translate to when they're playing against top teams from China, for example, which, as we know, generally speaking, has been the powerhouse region within CROSSFIRE Stars. Look, I don't know if the stats necessarily tell us a lot. Obviously, 58.4%. If you're winning more rounds than you're losing, then that's great, but again, you know, you do need to sort of factor in that we're moving to a higher level of competition at this point, so you can expect those numbers to drop down a little bit. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the stats here and see what they've been cooking up for us in the background, and maybe have an idea as to which of these players we should really be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with this team, I think everybody's going to look to Gokun to be kind of that leader when it comes to just being able to control maps and get those initial entry frags. He's one of the better snipers, I would say, in the overall pool of players here as well, and he's really proven himself in the last couple of years as a really strong young talent, and moving forward, I know he's going to be a big threat here throughout the event.
Take a look at All Gamers as well, and on their side of the field, you know, maybe you can make the argument slightly better numbers, but again, the context being that we don't really know necessarily how they're going to go against this international competition, and that's going to be the really big sort of jump that we're looking forward to seeing. I mean, I think particularly interesting for All Gamers is that, you know, you look at the newer members in this roster and you say, how are they going to perform? I think you've obviously got a lot of experience there with a couple of the members coming through from a long time ago. You know, they've been around for pretty much the entirety of CFS, but some new blood, new talent starting to come through within the Chinese region as well, and how are they going to compare when they go and play against the international opponents? It looks like, you know, across the board, maybe not quite as much of an individual hard carry performance from this team. It's a little bit more of a effort by committee.
Yeah, I think so. When you look at both All Gamers and BaiSha, the two Chinese teams, they have so much clutch potential in every individual player on their roster, and that's where I think Imperial has to be really ready for this matchup if they want to pull off a win here, because all of these guys have insane amounts of talent. But looking at some of their match history here between each other, it looks like Imperial, they may be wanting Black Widow out of this pick and ban phase coming up, because it's their only recent victory over All Gamers. Across the board otherwise, though, AG's been very dominant.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine at this point that a team like AG doesn't have quite a deep map pool, right, of any of the teams coming in alongside probably BaiSha. They are the team that will have had, I would say, the best lead-in in terms of the competition that they're playing domestically, so they should have been put through their paces there, and you can't really imagine that we're going to necessarily see them out-drafted, out-vetoed, so to speak. A couple of the important players to keep an eye on for this first game. LKK and ZQ are the highlight focus. I mean, again, we've talked a lot about Gokun and DOO, or Do, if you want to go with that, for All Gamers. I think for me, specifically, those would probably be the two that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But we'll see what LKK and ZQ are going to be able to bring to the table today as well.
Yeah, ZQ for me is just a really strong entry fragger. That's why you'll see him very high when it comes to kills per round. And I think moving forward in this event, they're going to have to be very prepared, especially on the defensive side of the map, to deal with a player like ZQ. So in this event, it's really going to be up to these teams to adapt quickly, especially when you're up against a very strong firepower team like AG. That's where I'm curious to see how well the young Feifei can do in this situation, because that's where I think he's shown a lot of strength, where Brazil hasn't had otherwise, I think, an IGL this strong.
Yeah, I suppose that is definitely going to be a key talking point as well, and I'm fairly confident that, you know, that if Brazil has been able to do it in the past, there's an opportunity to do it again. And I guess one aspect that we haven't really spoken about for Brazil, at least in particular, is that this is going to be a neutral venue as opposed to a venue that's going to be kind of against them, right? In a lot of those results that you're speaking about where Brazil was actually able to get the better of China, that was in China. Those were results that we saw where the crowd kind of was against them in a sense, but not the case here. will be neutral at worst, I would say, and obviously when they play against the Vietnamese teams, then there's a conversation to be had, but you would think they should probably be able to handle that relatively comfortably anyway.
Yeah, I think so, especially when you think about what Brazilian teams do in these type of events. They're always very high energy. They're always yelling, encouraging each other after these round wins, and that can be a really intimidating factor wherever you are to go up against, and that's where I think a lot of teams have to kind of have that mental fortitude to go toe-to-toe with a team like Imperial, because they're not going to be quiet there on the stage. Every round they win, you're going to hear it.
Yeah, indeed. All right, well, we're just waiting to see those players get themselves settled in on the stage and sort themselves out behind the PCs, and I think at that point then we start to think about, you know, what vetoes we're going to get out of this. There wasn't a huge amount of data really to take a look from, so I don't think it'll be super surprising to just sort of see something maybe unexpected. You know, I don't know that we would necessarily go back to those exact same maps, but Black Widow, Ankara once again come through, Compound as the decider. Any surprises there for you, Kyle, or pretty much tried and true?
I think the only surprise is maybe the Black Widow still on the table, considering that's the only time they've been upset by Imperial. Not banning that out right away might be a bit risky, but it's also important to consider, I think, that Mexico coming back into the map pool this year has maybe changed the way people rethink their approach to the ban and picking, because last year, this same event, they didn't have to play that map in the map pool. It was only a 6-map pool, and so now I think things are going to be a little bit differently in terms of what you want to leave on the table, because some of these maps, they might just not as be as prepared on, and I think Eagle Eye and Mexico are the maps I look at to be like very quick bans for a lot of these teams.
Right, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair enough. We'll sort of follow that as we go through the rest of the tournament. Black Widow, the selection from Imperial. I suppose if we want to see some legs in this series, that's the map that we're really looking for them to kind of pull off a win. If that ends up being a you know, a quick and easy win for AG, I would be saying we might not be seeing a super long series here. But let's take a look at the predictions across the board. For the most part, all the classes amongst the regions have lent towards AG. No surprise the Portuguese commentators have gone towards Imperial, but yeah, I mean, AG very much the favorite.
Yeah, it's really no surprise here. I mean, especially when you look at just their dominance within their own region. I mean, China, the strongest region, and AG currently very, very dominant in that region alone. So Imperial, it's one of those situations where I think they both have to bring their best game that they can, but also rely on being able to kind of catch AG a little bit off guard as well, because I feel like if both teams are at their peak, I still give a slight edge to AG just on the pure firepower they've got alone.
Yeah, something to kind of keep an eye on, definitely. And that's very much my mentality, as well as I think looking at these teams and players in the past and the exposure that they have to the top level of competition coming into this event as well. I would say it all sort of, to me, kind of leans in the direction of the Chinese rosters. I mean, there's definitely an interesting conversation to be had if we, for example, were to get AG and BaiSha playing against one another, because then you're kind of splitting hairs. You're saying what results matter more to you, the more recent results or maybe the bigger results. But that's a conversation that we can have later on down the track. They won't have to play against one another just yet in the group stage, so that is lucky. And I like the fact that, you know, both the Chinese teams are on opposite sides of the groups, both the Brazilian teams are on opposite sides of the groups. I think that's how it should be. Obviously, the Vietnamese teams are split as well, so you have a reasonable chance of getting, you know, potentially both of your regional representatives out of the groups if, you know, if they're decent enough. So something that definitely we would say would be the expectation for China and probably for Brazil as well. But a deeper conversation to be had about that when we do get into those playoffs.
Yeah, another important thing I think to keep in mind here as well is just looking at this match from Imperial's perspective. A map win here could still be very massive for them to make it out of this group at the end of the day, because 2 teams will make it out of the group, and the odds of some of these other teams getting a map as well, even off of a team like AG, could be pretty low. So I feel like even in Imperial's situation here, they could be looking at a 2-1 loss as a pretty big step forward in their potential life in going through to the playoffs.
Yeah, I suppose that is an important factor to remember, but might not be the easiest of tasks. Again, we've seen AG potentially a world-beating side if they're on their day. And so now, yeah, well, they're looking pretty chill. They're looking ready to go. I'm taking a quick look across at the Imperial side of things as well, and they seem like they're also ready to get underway. Not too much more to really be said about this matchup. You ever find the style, the headset style, quite interesting? Some players like to have it up on top of their head. Some players like to have it sitting behind.
Yeah, it is unique for some of them, especially when you look at like placement of their peripherals as a whole too. I know I've seen some of the Chinese players play with their keyboard even on their lap, which for me would be just insanity, but it is unique to see kind of their own unique approach to their setup. But yeah, it looks like Imperial here is pretty ready to go. I think these guys are going to be impressive out of the gate. I think, you know, if you were to catch all gamers off guard, the best chance they've got is in an opening round matchup. I feel like when you look at their past history and where they've been upset, these are the situations where they've been taken advantage of a few times, I think. So I feel like all gamers, they have to come out confident and kind of not underestimate these guys, because I've seen a lot of confidence behind these players in the past, and they're kind of ready to catch them off guard if they're not prepared on the side of AG.
Yeah, well, we will wait and see how prepared AG is. Can't imagine they've come into this one underprepared. And with that level of experience that they've got across the board, it should be raring to go. I mean, the one benefit, I suppose, for Imperial is that it is their map pick first, right? So if you're going to come out the gate strong, it is beneficial that it is on your own map pick. And hopefully you can sort of ride that wave of momentum going into the rest of the map pool.
Yeah, I think this first map's going to be a really strong indicator where the series goes, because map 2 being Ankara, I think is going to be a very strong map for AG, one they very rarely lose. And even when these two teams have met in the past, both times AG has won on that map. So if Imperial wants any chance of taking the series away, they've got to at least get this first map on the table and maybe go for the 50-50 win on Compound, because that second map is going to be a pretty scary one. Both Chinese teams here very good on Ankara.
I mean, it's a map that's been around forever, really, isn't it? So it's not as if there's like a curveball in the map pool or anything like that. So they well and truly should be pretty comfortable. It is funny as well to sort of see the improvements in peripherals. I remember the first event that I attended in 2015. You know, you had some really old like peripherals being used by some of the players, but now they're into the modern age and got the wireless mouse, the wireless keyboard, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just a matter of moments, I think, until we get into this first best of 3. And honestly, it's going to be a close one here. First map, Black Widow, in just a couple moments. And yeah, I'm surprised neither team seems anxious in the situation. Both seem a lot calmer than I would have anticipated, especially on the Imperial side. These guys are normally very talkative, very high energy, but I don't get that sense just yet from them.
Nerves, maybe, possibility coming into this first matchup. Trying to stay focused, perhaps.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, especially looking at the group draw, I'm sure they weren't super happy with who they're up against. I mean, when you talk about the comparison of these two groups, you've got a very strong group here. I mean, all gamers, Imperial, Kara House, and Pacific all in the same group. That's a very tough group to be up against, only knowing there's 2 spots on the other side of it. And as much as they may think they can win against all gamers, knowing if they go down, their only hope is to either beat Kara House or Pacific Macta, and there's really no easy matchups in this group.
Yeah, certainly a factor to kind of keep in mind. Man, that is a very vertical keyboard. Basically 90 degrees. Yeah, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me that way, unfortunately, but I suppose it is good if you don't have a lot of space on your desk at home or in your LAN cafe setup or whatever it may be.
Yeah, right now it looks like we are just about ready here. You can kind of see them talking through some final, maybe strategies here. They're going to prepare for this first map, and then we should be underway with it here. But definitely looks like all gamers a little anxious here as well. You can kind of see the expressions here. They definitely know this is not an easy one. I feel like against most other teams in this situation, they'd be feeling extremely confident. But you've always got to wonder when it's a Brazilian versus China matchup if they've got that little bit of doubt in the back of their mind, knowing that's the region that tends to upset them if they do go down.
Well, I would also wonder if there's just an extra level of pressure on the Chinese teams because they would be the ones coming in with the expectation of being the top dogs. So, you know, maybe if you're a weaker region coming into this event, you don't necessarily concern yourself so much with that. You know, there's not as much to lose necessarily. And if you come from China, maybe it's a bit of a different story. You have the sort of the hopes of the nation on your shoulders. I've been told that the game will start in about a minute's time. So I appreciate your patience. Obviously there was some issues getting into the game for some of the players, and looks like we'll be ready to go shortly.
Yeah, just about ready to go here, and we'll be hopping into our first best of 3. 2 more on the way, but I am interested to see some of these other teams later in the day as well. I think for me, the big wild card in this event here is those teams from the singular selections of GV and Pacific. I feel like because they don't have 2 strong teams from their region coming in, a lot of teams might underestimate them, but
right.
I feel like historically they're still very strong teams. I mean, they've got people who have made grand finals on both rosters, so I think it'll be fun to see them later in the day, even though I know on paper a lot of people are looking at a Brazilian or Chinese winner as kind of the potential expectation here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable for teams and players to sort of be looking towards the bigger, more dominant regions to also, once again, sort of follow suit through this event. But I guess the big question that I would have around teams like GV and Pacific Macta is what kind of mentality are they coming into this event with? Are they coming in to be competitive? Are they coming in to win it? Or are they coming in and sort of playing with the idea that, yeah, we are from a region which probably doesn't have as much confidence or doesn't have the infrastructure that China and Brazil do specifically, and even to an extent Vietnam, right? And in that case, you know, are we feeling like we can compete in this match or not? Well, it's time to find out.
All right, here we go, right into the action. Map number 1, it's going to be Black Widow to kick off this best of 3 series between All Gamers and Imperial. It's going to be All Gamers starting off on the blacklist side of the map early on. A quick 2-1-2 control setup here coming out from AG, trying to figure out exactly where this defense is going to be playing, but it actually looks like already we are going to see a stack coming out of Imperial. They've got 4 players already grouped up on the back of this A-bomb site.
Yeah, really hefty stack from them. Just leaving Ryu Zhao over toward that B site to just spot it and see whether or not there's going to be any offensive in that direction from AG. And yeah, maybe it does end up actually being the case that AG head in that direction. C4 with Jue making a rotation. Yeah, at this point, it doesn't look like AG are super committed to sort of taking any fights anywhere just yet, but very much leading in the direction of the B site. Util getting tossed back and forth. And Ryu Zhao not really suffering too much just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be all about the rotation now. All Gamers starting to back off, but Gokun actually catches Du through the middle window. That's a huge pickup on the side of Imperial. Now they've got the 5-on-4 advantage, and they can just hold on and anchor and add that pressure onto All Gamers, who are now slowly grouping up towards the backside of Catwalk, but now they're going to be going right towards the stack.
LKK in the position to make a difference, and Will doubles down. Good start for the Brazilian roster. Imperial now in a 4-on-2. Get that flash right in the face of ZY as well, just hampering his progression a little. I mean, they've still got 40 seconds to play with, to be sure, but it's not looking too crash hot for All Gamers to start things off.
Yeah, the time is ticking here. They've got to move quickly, but they've got two players watching their location. One of them is going to be Adrian here playing on the back of the triple stack. He's going to spot them out early on. ZY goes down, and he gets the double kill as well, taking down ZQ. And that is a pretty impressive round to kick this one off. Imperial only losing one player in the opening round as they take it.
Yeah, I mean, dominant, really, display, I think, is what you would call that from Imperial so far. Goken, he's feeling confident, and he's pushed through the mid doors, so he's just looking to try to find an aggressive peak. He does have the backup of LKK, who's also pushing his way into mid. Haven't spotted either of the AG members just yet, but with that rotation happening in mid, Bomb at the feet of Do for the moment, this is actually quite a critical kill to find whichever way it goes.
Yeah, it's a tough angle to check here for both players. It's really all about the timing here. Either player could catch the other off guard at any moment, but we can also see All Gamers. They're starting to fully group up here for the B push, but it's already Goken to find one in mid, and now All Gamers, they're almost forced into a corner here.
Yeah, they've lost complete map control, haven't they? It's a good start for ZY, gets that headshot onto ADRF, and the two-man entry from ZY might just save the day for this round for All Gamers. Plant is going down now. Retake required for Imperial, but what looked to be a great position has now started to fall by the wayside.
Yeah, it is going to be a very difficult retake now, especially with Even on the back of site here, holding off both of these players. He's going to catch at least one underneath. He finds Feifei J. It's going to be Lukum now looking for the trade. He's not going to find it too easily, though. Able to pick it up at the last moment. Now it's all on to him. 1 versus 3 situation. He's going to be spotted out by ZY, who seals the deal, and we're already tied up.
Yeah, no chance really in the 1v3 there. Too big of a crossfire to deal with, for lack of a better word. So straight into round 3. Do, I would say he's struggling at the moment, right? He's 0-2 as far as opening duels are concerned, and that's not really what you want out of your sniper to begin with. Goken, again, able to open the account for his team, and you can understand why so many players and pundits are talking about him.
Yeah, at this point, he's really leading the charge here for Imperial. He's got to pick for them every single round so far. On the other side, Do not looking amazing in the server, maybe a little bit nervous or anxious as one of the younger players on this All Gamers lineup. There's definitely a lot of pressure on the line in this opening match, knowing this is one of the strongest opponents they're going to face in this group. But Imperial, they're meeting them head-on with a lot of defensive strength so far. I'm really liking what we're seeing out of them. Unique strategies coming out every round and showing they're not afraid to play counter-aggressive as well against All Gamers, which is really a huge statement because a lot of teams tend to give them a little bit too much respect in the server.
Right. Well, certainly not happening at the moment. You already saw even in round 2, Black Widow was more than comfortable playing aggressively on this defense side, so it's not as if they're afraid of AG at this point. It seems like 2-1 split into the A-bomb site, but again, ZY, 2 incredible entries. And now that A site is starting to look a little bit worse for wear. Goken from the window might have a bit of a tougher time with that sniper to really have an impact on this round initially. But just more than happy to buy the time for the rotation to come across, decides to take the peek on the plant, and is punished for it.
Yeah, right now, again, we've got a disadvantaged situation for Imperial. ZQ through the bottom of the catwalk, shoots through to take down Ryuzao, and now it's Adrian left alone in a 1-on-3 situation. He is stuck here on the back of the catwalk, and ZQ knows exactly what's coming here, should be able to connect and take him down. And again, All Gamers get it done, Jordan, but I think a lot of it's got to be said here. ZY doing some heavy lifting on the entry fragging.
Yep, yeah, I have to agree. If ZY doesn't find the 2 entries on B and the 2 entries on A long in the 2 respective rounds that AG have won, they don't win those rounds.
Already a lot of early pressure here as well. The utility from Imperial, a lot of smoke screens earlier on here in the rounds, trying to set up Goken for that early pick, but I don't blame them. He's been very successful so far against Do. The early round entries haven't really worked out for him, so I'm hoping we can see him come to life as well, because if he does, All Gamers is going to have an even better time in this opening half.
It's a bit of a better early map control situation here for All Gamers. Do post on long. We'll be happy with that. The rest of AG seems to, again, be trending back towards the B bomb site. Suppose unless Du is able to find an opening frag here, you might just see that mid to B or the B hit from AG.
Yeah, it seems to be the case here. Gokun playing on the other side of the smoke, waiting to see if they're going to push through. No full commit, though. They're going to go ahead and use it as smoke to just start lurking their way up the catwalk here, trying to poke around for that information. But again, Imperial, a lot of their numbers still stacked towards this A bomb site.
Well, that's the direction AG is going to be heading in, so flashing themselves in. LKK, though, makes no mistake. He's fully white, has to hide behind the box. Won't matter too much. He's got teammates in tow. Maybe I spoke too soon. This time it's ZQ who'll make those entries happen. They weren't expecting the extra player on the bomb site, but it will not matter. AG claim another.
Yeah, it's a tough one there, too, especially with Imperial. It feels like strategically they're getting the reads they need to, but when it comes to these gun duels on the sites, ZQ and ZY are just coming through on a whole nother level so far for all gamers and making it almost impossible to go toe-to-toe with them. So I'm curious to see what they're going to try and do to shut these two guys down, but so far it's proven to be quite the challenge.
Well, again, another little bit of an aggression out from the defense there with ADRF pushing out of B. Trying to get a little bit more info. No one from AG really in the vicinity. A very default spread from AG to start a lot of these rounds, isn't it, right? You'll have one of the snipers or even, you know, potentially multiple, but at this point, ZQ this time is the one posted on A long instead of Du, and Du was sitting in mid watching the mid cross. Now he's sort of changed his position up to have a look towards B, which at this point, you'd think they would probably be aware is pretty dirty. Black Widow, you know, you expect to see a little bit of this aggression coming through from the defense.
Yeah, I'm surprised at the setup from Imperial in this round. It is a little bit risky. They don't have any control over A long, and they're really hoping they can catch these players in the hands of ADRF, who is able to find one, but that's not going to be enough here. Ryuzao not able to trade. He's got to fall back here and wait for the rotation coming through. It's going to be Gokun moving into the back of site here to potentially assist, but again, all gamers on this execution, they've been very solid. They've got the counter utility already ready to go. Ryuzao, he's going to find a half connection here, but still, the push is going to come right onto site, and Imperial, they're going to be playing pretty much a full retake here.
Yeah, it is a bit of a one-and-done position there from ADRF, isn't it? And one, unfortunately, at the moment, against AG, doesn't really feel like it's ever going to be enough. Gokun unable to make the difference when it comes to denying the plant. And so AG now playing out that post plant 4-on-4. It's a good spot to be in. Buddy system. And it's going to be Du that doesn't really get too affected by that flash. Turns around and just pops Reyes out. Feifei unable to find the trade again, and that's been one of the big problems for Imperial in this round. The trading just not quite there, letting them down. LKK chimes in with one, but again, he's going to need to do more than that. The pressure is a little too much for LKK, and now it's down to just Gokun. Time a factor in the one-on-one. Surely he can't win this. Du should be there, and does tonight. It's 4-1. AG are dominating.
Yeah, they really are. Some of the rounds are pretty close, but it's just these gunfights. The aim here on their side looks a little bit superior, so I think Imperial moving forward, they've got to play a little bit more safe and set up for these trades a little bit more efficiently. Already, though, we've got a gunfight on B long. It's going to be Imperial grabbing two right away. ZY answers back with a late trade, but it's not going to be enough here. Du and ZQ already left alone in a 2-on-4, and Imperial, it's going to be a pretty effective counter-aggression there.
Yeah, maybe that's something that they need to sort of be turning to, right? A little bit of chaos. Throw something in the mix that AG aren't prepared for. Because it seems like if you allow the mid-rounds and the late rounds to play out in a standard fashion, AG looks a little bit more comfortable there. But Imperial can find the advantages with some quicker strikes. Leaves it in the 2-on-4. Again, fairly difficult to win from this position from AG, but certainly not impossible. Comes down to whether or not Imperial are going to give AG any picks.
Yeah, at this point, it's going to be up to AG to find it here. You can tell they're waiting to see if a mistake's going to be made to find themselves an early pick in this 2-on-4 situation. But ZQ, he's got the right idea here, starting to work his way up the catwalk towards the A bomb site, and this is where the gamble stack could be a bit of a disaster. If they're not able to set up effectively to trade off of each other for this retake, AG could have a really good read here.
Well, Du has spotted the player in connector, doesn't know where Rayo Zhao though is. And so that leaves it down to just ZQ, who at this point in time is, you'd say, probably playing for pride. Good headshot to start things off. Missed shot from Goken, but won't matter. Switches to the sidearm and is able to complete the round for Imperial.
Yeah, I mean, so far, I feel like Imperial, their best luck has been these aggressive plays on the defense to try and answer back. They've got a really good control play on B long and on A long here. It's just a matter of when they're going to meet all gamers on these plays.
Yeah.
I think moving forward for them, though, if they can get 3 or 4 rounds in this half, they'll be feeling pretty comfortable. Black Widow does tend to be a slightly attack-sided map here, so at the end of the day, 3 or 4 rounds in this half, not a terrible situation for them.
You see all that utility that gets used early in the round from AG over toward the B side of the map. They're expecting that aggression out from Black Widow once again. And unfortunately, actually, for AG, they didn't receive it, right? Imperial decided to play a little bit more passively back in that B bomb site this round, and so a lot of that util usage ended up being fairly irrelevant for AG. So it's a big investment for not a whole lot of gain.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond this as well. It is going to be a lot of pressure on mid, and they've got no defensive hold other than Goken playing very low here on the back of the A ramp. He's going to be able to spot one, takes down ZY, but the push has already come through. It's going to be Even already helping Jouet flank onto site here, and Goken, he's now trapped in a corner. Even takes him down, and the 4v4 now looks very favorable for AG.
Yeah, getting that util out on long. Set Du up on that line for the moment, but he'll just get forced back. Oh, this is a very nicely timed flank in mid from ZQ to shut down the rotation. And that pretty much shuts down the round even before it kind of gets started for Imperial. LKK does win a duel against Even, but in doing so gives up his position. Now also loses his teammate. So solo against 3, not going to check the corner. That makes for an easy frag for ZQ. And AG right back on the horse.
Yeah, now the pressure's on. We're getting closer to the end of the first half here, and Imperial, they're already down by 3. They need at least a round or 2 here to feel like they've got a fighting chance going into their attacking side when we get to the switch here. But all gamers, they've done such a good job so far of really just putting that early pressure to stall most of these counter-aggressive plays, and they're playing a lot safer than what we would usually see out of them. They're normally a very aggressive team themselves here, but they're kind of just playing a little bit more methodically, but it's working so well against Imperial so far because these guys, they're very hungry to grab the early kills, but all gamers, they're kind of abusing that.
Smoke into the mid doors. Oh, Feifei's playing with fire there. Du unable to land the shot. Once again, a setup over toward the B side of the map for all gamers. This time I think it might be a little more difficult for them. You've got 3 players on B already to deal with, plus a fast rotator in mid from Imperial. And LKK does get taken down, or does grab himself one, I should say. ADRF is the one that did drop. Now the real entry begins in earnest, and it's a tough crossfire to break right here for AG. They're fighting hard to try to make their way into the site, but that has bought time for the rotation to come across, and there's still 2 members that they need to deal with. They know where LKK is. He's not long for this world. You'd think they're trying to rush him down, and they do eventually get the better of him, but Goken has been given time in the 1-on-3. Secures it for Imperial.
Yeah, an insane round to pull that off for Goken, keeping things a lot closer now going into the final round of the half. They could even make this a 1-round game if they're able to pick up the final round here, so definitely a solid work on that retake, but all gamers, that slight hesitation, they've got to be careful of that. Gave room for the rotation, and now It's all about this fight on A long. 3 players from both teams trying to go head-to-head on it, but again, all gamers, they don't seem too eager to take these early fights. They're playing very reserved in these early round situations.
Yeah, AG definitely taking the long game kind of approach. I don't think it's a bad shout, right? Imperial doesn't have a whole lot of counter utility for dealing with the bomb site hit.
Yeah, it is going to be a really tough situation here on the execution, especially for the retake. They've only got a couple flashes left across the board. The majority not even having utility at this point to work with, and all gamers, again, they look pretty hungry to take this one towards the B bomb site. This time it's only Ryuzao playing the jump spot here, trying to get that early information on the push, but he's going to be up against a pretty tough brick wall.
Yeah, you'd imagine this is going to be a difficult one for him. Still hasn't called for the rotation yet. ADRF is having a bit of a look. Has actually decided to commit into that B bomb site. Now some rotators starting to come across. I wonder if AG have missed their timing a little bit. Smokes are out, flashes as well. They're still not committing to this push. Only now do they pull the trigger and start to make their way into the bomb site, but it feels a little bit too late, right? Imperial have already made that rotation across. LKK is behind them, of which they're also not aware, and so they've just taken way too long here on the B side take. It is a bit too easy for Imperial as they close out the 4th.
Yeah, really solid retakes coming out of these guys, but all gamers as well. Some hesitation, just proving to be their downfall in these final 2 rounds of the half. And now you can start to get a sense of momentum on the Imperial side of things. They're going to be switching now over to the Blacklist side, which should be for them the easier side for them on this map as well. They're a team that loves to be a little bit aggressive, so the Blacklist side of the map could be pretty favorable for them, but it kind of just goes to show you why this is their map pick. You can tell they look pretty strong on it so far.
It was looking a bit awkward for a moment, but they did adapt nicely. So now, how's things going to go for them after the side swap? Just that standard 2-1-2 setup from all gamers. And ZQ with a bit of a job to do here in mid, but we'll pop that smoke down at the doors. Add himself an extra layer of comfort.
Some nice early utility coming out from all gamers as well, trying to force them back off of this B-bomb side entrance. It's going to be Ryuzao who is looking for that opener, but they're not going to really find anything just yet. All gamers trying to rotate back towards this mid position here. They're going to be looking for that mid pick onto Adrian, but it's going to be Imperial going for the full rotation themselves, sending all 5 players towards the A bomb site, and this is where Zhui's got a really solid position to try and anchor down.
Bit of util getting tossed in mid just to try to keep Do honest. Zhui is able to grab himself just the 1ZY, clears out one angle, but does still have to kind of be aware of Fei, who is starting to make his way across the bridge. That'll be dealt with by Even. And it sends Imperial packing back out of A.
Du, though, going to run into trouble on the back of Catwalk. He's going to be taken down, but this is where Goken's able to sneak up A long and find that impact as well to make it a 3-on-2 situation. Even in ZQ now split up across the map, trying to find their way into a solid defense, but here comes the charge onto the A bomb side. It's Even left alone. He's going to hold the line for one. The bomb downed as well. Goken looks for the repeat. He'll find it. 1 versus 2 now for ZQ. He's got a full rotate to try and stall this plant, but he's got the timing to maybe make it happen. Doesn't matter. Lukum takes him down. And so far, these two guys are looking insane. Lukum on 14, Goken on 12. I mean, that's a great place to be. They're doing a lot of work.
Yeah, a little bit of a... I'd say a little bit of a mistake made by AG, right? When you have the 4-on-3, do they need to really be trying to get over eager for picks? Do they want to even take those fights, especially when time is starting to tick down? They give the opportunity over to Imperial to equalize and then even find an advantageous position numbers-wise. Just doesn't seem super necessary.
Yeah, it's some interesting decision-making coming out of All Gamers. ZY actually sniping as well. I'm kind of curious to see if they continue that. 2 snipers for AG, very uncommon from what I've seen in the past, so I'm wondering if they're going to make a little bit more use out of that because it hasn't seemed to work out for them, at least so far. On the other side, though, it's going to be Lucum trying to contest here as he sneaks up the catwalk. He's going to spot Zhui very early on, but Zhui gets the counter pick right back onto him, and that is going to be a very solid start for All Gamers, but it is a little bit of a fake. The rest of Imperial now positioned towards the B bomb site.
Yeah, they completely disregard mid. Oh, and again, looking for info, aren't they? It's not as if Do is shining away from peeking into connector. But hasn't spotted a whole lot out yet. Imperial slow things down.
Yeah, right now, Gokun, he's the one trying to find that opening to even things up here. Spots ZQ underneath. Unfortunately, not able to hit that reaction shot onto him. Tries to force his way out of the mid-double doors. It's a little bit too risky, though, and ZQ finds the punish. Now it's a 3-on-5 for the execution. They're going to go ahead and group up here on this A-long hit, but Zhui, he's already holding on to the staircase position. He's going to be a very hard player to get past uncontested here. He's going to find the first. The trades, though, come quickly in favor of Imperial, but they're not ready for that second on the back of side. It's going to be ZY to find one, and now Feifei J is left all alone.
Yeah, the rest of the lads coming across as well. Not going to make his life easy, though he does actually have time to make it to B if he is able to get out okay. Oh, the game is given away now, though. Even's going to take that opportunity to fight, and, you know, again, is that super necessary if he doesn't have someone there to trade him? Now puts it down into a 2-on-1. Shots missing. ZY going to be disappointed with that. That was his opportunity. Cleanly caught Feifei with util in hand, but we'll make amends for it.
Yeah, nice try there from Feifei J. He had the read, got a little bit overzealous on that window player, giving it up a little bit too early, but still, All Gamers starting to adapt now on this side of the map, and this is where Imperial has to try and find some ways themselves to kind of break through a little bit more cautiously. These guys kind of just go out swinging a lot of these rounds. You could see it from Gokun there on that peek coming through from the mid-double doors. Again, he gets caught a little bit too greedy this time around on A long, and they're already in a numbers down situation they've got to recover.
Not where you'd want to be. And lots of nades getting tossed back and forth, but not too many connections, really. Play slows down for Imperial, who at this point, again, are looking really committed to that B bomb site. AG haven't really made any aggressive moves out of A. They've got control along, to be fair, so that's some information in itself, but should be pretty prepared for what's to come. They've got 3 members over towards this B bomb site, even just ducking behind the boxes, staying his hand for the moment, and might have to do a little bit of work, but cannot at all. Those were some nice entries for Imperial. It looked like AG had the setup, but couldn't convert.
Yeah, now it's a tough retake on their hands. 2-on-4 situation. ZY looking for that opening from the back of the B window. Zhui on the back line, going to be taken down by Lucum. And now it's already up to just ZY. Feifei hunts him down. And we're back to a tie here. Imperial looking better and better as this first map progresses.
Yeah, I wonder what happened in that round for AG. It just seemed like none of the players on the B bomb site could buy a frag, which is a little disappointing when you have the stack in the right spot and you can't even make the round competitive. It's not a good look. So what's the adaptation from AG? They do persist with the double sniper setup.
Yeah, right now it is going to be a bit of a lurk coming down here from A long. It's going to be Gokun waiting to see if somebody pushes through, but All Gamers, they seem to have a sense where these players are coming from. A lot of attention towards mid and B coming out from them so far. Only one player holding on to that A-long position, but Feifei trying to sneak up here. He's getting that information that the catwalk is at least clear, but ZQ, he's got the key position in this round. He's got to hold on to these mid-double doors because Imperial, they're kind of ready to make a pressure play here.
Not a lot of noise being made by all gamers at the moment. And they look like they're in a fairly dire position if that A hit does come through. ZQ will be able to spot it early, but it doesn't even look in the right direction, and so he ends up being a pretty easy frag for Imperial. Now it's on to ZY to try to equalize the numbers. He's got full long control. There's no one pressuring him, but he doesn't know that. So he's still a little bit worried, still a little bit distracted, and yeah, this is starting to fall apart a little for AG.
Yeah, they really need a pick soon here to get this retake rolling. There's almost no time to work with, though. The bomb's already halfway down. It's going to be ZY trying to post up on A long and make something happen. Here comes the push back into sight, though. Do gets a nice shot coming out of the A window, but Feifei on the flank has everything he needs to stall this one out, but it's already down to a 2v1. They're defusing the bomb. ZY gets the coverage, and AG, they don't have the numbers, but they still get it done.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thought, wasn't it, from Feifei? Like, when you look at where that plant is, it's not exactly ideal for someone coming from long, and so he didn't really have the coverage that he needed. He had to just charge all the way up, and ultimately that makes for a pretty easy aim duel that goes the way of AG. If he would have been given another couple of seconds to play with, I think it could have been really dangerous, or if he had landed his shots initially on that cross. But, you know, these are ifs and buts and what ifs and maybes, but they obviously didn't eventuate. And so it's AG up to 7 and 6. It's a hard-fought map at the moment.
Yeah, now it's going to be up to Imperial to really set up strong on these post plants, and that's one of the key differences between these two teams. AG on the retakes, even if they don't have numbers, they're so good at converting these rounds, and Imperial, they've got to set up to trade a little bit more comfortably once they get that bomb down. All gamers, though, they've got a really good stack going on so far in this round. 3 players putting a lot of their attention towards this B bomb site. Only 1 player posted up A long, and they continue to persist as well with this double bomb setup, and it seems to be getting more and more comfortable for them.
Different position from Even this time around, but Du instantly loses his life. Shui does get himself a 1-for-1, evens the last line of defense right now, trying to buy time for the rotate to come across, and he's done a great job himself. He's the one-man army for AG, locking down B. Time still a factor. Rotation into mid. Bomb is dropped in an awkward spot, and Even gets the information that Imperial is hanging around. Why wouldn't they be? They have to collect that C4. ZY is just rolling with the sidearm at the moment.
Nice counter flash comes through, though. It's going to be ZY who finds one, but Imperial hang on and tie this one up again, 7-7. But the rounds are getting very, very close here. Imperial just winning these 1v1s right when they need to. But all gamers, I feel like they just have a little bit of trouble sometimes when the aggression comes their way. Even when they have these stacks, they're having some trouble holding.
That's a lot of util getting tossed on long this time around. Feifei is able to find the opener against Shui. I was going to say, I think the B side has been a little bit of a weakness for AG, but now Imperial turning their attention toward A long and trying to open the account there. They do a good job of that. Still the double sniper setup persists. Du is able to play aggressively in this round, to be fair. That's kind of what you want, right? If you lose control of one side of the map, you need to try to take control of the other side and at least restore that equilibrium.
Yeah, now it's going to be up to all gamers to try and find that pick, and it looks like mid is where they want to test it here. They've got Even trying to get a little bit overzealous on the mid ramp, almost gets caught there from Gokun on the edge of that angle. He's going to go ahead and back off, resetting into a 2-2 stack. They're just going to go ahead and give up full control of the mid over to Imperial. They do have that late rotation, though, of ZQ. It's still not going to be a whole lot of presence across the map, and this is where their setup can be a little bit difficult. You have to rely on these anchors both being OMs across the map, and on these retakes and rotations, they're going to be a little bit clunky at times.
A little bit of spam there, connecting onto Gokun, drops him down to close to half. Still not the equalizing kill. I wonder how late Imperial is going to leave this. Because when time starts to become a factor, that's when mistakes start to creep in, and little mishaps can make a big difference when there's less than 30 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, here comes the late push, though. It is going to be a 5-man stack towards A long coming through from Imperial. He's got the angle to try and contest it here, but does he know what's coming? He's going to find the first onto Ryuzao. Here comes the follow-up as well. ZY, good for another one from underneath. These double sniper setups are working really solidly for all gamers. Now Feifei has to contest aggressively, gets the jumping kill over the top of the long box. The bomb will get planted, but here comes the push right back into sight. Gouken, he's held it, and there's just no time on the clock to plant here. ZQ wins off the timer.
Well, not quite, but ZQ wins anyway is the name of the game. So 8-7 the scoreline. It was very tight at that point, wasn't it? Did manage to at least get that C4 down, but I mean, there's not really much you can do there either way, right? You're sitting to plant the defuse. You're not being in a position to take that fight. You're just never going to win when the peak comes through. So attack pause here to have a chat. You have to imagine that is on the behalf of Imperial. And it looks like multiple different conversations are happening right now, actually.
Yeah, I feel like at this point they're just trying to figure out a way to shut down that double arm setup. It's not something All Gamers is notorious for doing, but it's working really well on these late round hits coming out of Imperial. And if they're not ready to adapt here, this could be the map going away from them. And I definitely respect the pause being called now, because this is the map they know they need to win in this series. Knowing Ankara's up next, they can't afford to go down 0-1 already.
No. It's a good point. So what is being said? That is the question. Well, it looks like they're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm interested to see what they'll change coming out of the pause. The pressure's really on them as well now. They're down by a round, and AG's already 2 away from victory. So for them, they could throw a curveball here that maybe changes the pace of the game, because while they've had 2 snipers throughout so far in the second half, All Gamers could equally use this pause to come back and do something different themselves, and maybe they only run 1 sniper, but we're going to hop back into it and see exactly what they're going to do here.
Yeah, certainly haven't seen the same level of aggression out from All Gamers as we did out of Imperial. But that might just change up, and he eats a huge chunk of grenade damage walking out the B doors, but he has at the very least gotten across into safety. And there was also, not to mention, that frag that went down in mid. Zhui has crept very far forward and looks like he'll find the timing for maybe more than just the one. Ryuzao will be able to trade down still, though. That is a punishing blow from All Gamers. An adaptation, as you said, from them as well, off the back of that attack timeout.
Yeah, what a great time to pull out the aggressive plays. Now they've got the advantage. They've still got the double arm setup, though. It could be tough to work with depending on where this push comes through, but with the numbers advantage, they can keep picking apart at Imperial and hopefully find their way through to hold on to the advantage they've created for themselves. Imperial, though, putting those numbers now towards the B bomb site. Lukum still alive means there's entries on the table. They almost find one there on to do. He's going to have to fall back, but the bait is set up here. Even playing the off angle, they're just not ready for it. Even able to find the first kill on that entry towards the B bomb site. Now they've got the 4v2 to work with.
Yeah, disaster really for Imperial, isn't it? ADRF makes a footstep. And so All Gamers will be pretty well aware of what is happening with this rotation.
Yeah, not a whole lot of presence here towards the A bomb site, though. It's just going to be ZY hanging on underneath the catwalk. He's going to spot the first player on the cross, gets the follow-up shot somehow. Do gets the second, and there you have it. Another one on the board for All Gamers, and more importantly, it's already on to map point as well. And this is where they've got to find a way to answer back now for the side of Imperial. Otherwise, this one could be over.
Yeah, definitely starting to feel it's a little bit too little too late, right? There was an ebb and flow to this game, and at one point Imperial was definitely looking favorable. But they've just lost out a little bit of that pizzazz, so to speak, in this second half. And AG have been persistent with their strategy. And it's continued to work out. I think they've looked a lot better as well, AG, since they've started taking control outside of B a little bit more. It's given them a little bit more information. It seems like they're a bit more comfortable and prepared to take the duels over toward A. And it has also stopped Imperial from getting into B, which has actually been a bit of a problem for AG. So better setup from AG this time. The shots don't quite connect from the Orm, but Jue with the rifles able to get the job done even now. It's his turn as he'll be able to take the fight to Fei. And a 2-on-4 to try to save the map for Imperial. It just does not seem like that is going to happen. Gokun is on an island. He is miles away from the action. And now he's got a mammoth task to try to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, the C4 down as well on the back of Spawn Jue. He's got to be ready for this one. He takes him down, and that's going to be map number 1, 10-7. All gamers pulling off a big win here on the map pick of Imperial to kick off their life in the Summer Championship. And honestly, it was a bit of a nail-biter for a moment, but a much-earned victory here.
Yeah, look, it's not a great look, unfortunately, for Imperial, right? When we're talking about the context of this series and we're saying that Ankara probably doesn't look too good for them. It certainly looks quite good for AG. If you lose your own map pick, then you're definitely staring down the barrel of a 0-2 defeat. And it wasn't as if Imperial were not contesting in that map. It wasn't as if they were like completely run over. There was definitely moments where I thought they looked like the better team, actually. But AG, it just seemed like they had a little bit of something extra left in the tank, which Imperial couldn't find. Right, AG, once they got into that second half, or if anything, almost accelerated a little bit, and were able to clean it up. It looked pretty comfortable in the end, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, overall, that second half, I think, really told the tale of the difference between these two teams. You had the nice adaptations coming out of all gamers. On top of that, Gokun had a bit of a tough performance in that second half. I think he had 12 kills in the first half, 1 kill in the second half, and his impact kind of just fell off there. Meanwhile, the double OM setup working wonders for all gamers.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a surprise, obviously, to you that the double OM setup came out, but it seems like the kind of map where you can really make it work, right? There's a lot of long-range angles, especially towards long, towards mid, and even out towards the push on the B-bomb site, right? I think that, again, what I was talking about during the game was kind of where I felt like actually there was that shift from all gamers. Once they started to take control outside of B, it seemed like that's where they were able to find their big advantages. And, you know, whether it was really just because of the information, I don't even really feel like there was that much of an emphasis put on that side of the map beyond that point from Imperial. So it was almost like a handshake agreement. Okay, you take this part of the map, we're going to go to the other side of the map. But do you win in that handshake agreement when you're on the attack and AG is almost in a sense kind of funneling you back over towards A? Answer's probably not. It seemed like AG kind of were reading them like a book a little bit from that point onward.
Yeah, and I think the other difference we noticed too, even in the first half, the rounds where AG didn't have the right read, they would push into the stacks, and in the stacks, they were winning more consistently as well, even when Imperial knew they were coming. I mean, when you look at the entry fragging of ZQ and ZY, these guys were doing massive work in that opening half to make sure they had the lead going into the second half, and I think overall it's just going to come down to that firepower difference here, because strategically, it felt like a pretty even match throughout.
Yeah, it did. But, I mean, firepower-wise, the funny thing is, like we were talking about in that first half, you know, Gokun, LKK, it seemed like they were kind of up to the task. It really did feel like they were kind of able to go toe-to-toe with AG, but Gokun especially felt like he really just fell off in the second half. He was not able to get any openings when they moved over to the second half, and so that was a big sort of point that was missing, right? There was at least like, what, 2 or 3 rounds in the first half, especially early on in the first half, that he was able to kind of get that initial frag and make it a 4-on-5. And that obviously makes life a lot easier when you're playing a game like this. And so if he's unable to do that in the second half and they're only getting through the rounds in the first half because of that, then that's going to start to become an issue for them as this tournament goes on.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show that you could tell all gamers kind of studied where he was going to be at on the attacking side, because they had 2 OMs up against his 1, but they were never actually fighting him too much in that second half. They were more utilizing those picks towards mid and B to create a lot of havoc. A lot of times you would see Gokun looking for that early pick, not finding anything until they actually fight in the execution, and that's a lot of pressure to put on your OM, having to charge in on the blacklist side and find those entries versus having that flexibility to find them early on.
Sure, yeah. Certainly, not only that, but when you're going up against 2 ohms, you know, it makes like every extra angle something that's going to be a bit of a problem that you're going to have to kind of worry about. So, look, at this point in time, yeah, I mean, it's looking really good for AG. I think that's very much within line for the expectations. You saw the caster predictions before that game. We both obviously went the way of AG. The vast majority of the casters went the way of AG. And I suppose those who did pick Imperial are probably feeling a little bit silly after that one. We'll take a look back at the highlights of the first game here. And you guys can see how things broke down. But yeah, certainly did break down a little bit. Maybe not in the way that you're seeing on your screen right now, because these are not the highlights from that first game. But tell you what, Kyle, it was fairly solid performance from AG across the board.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing for me was just how well they played in the first half, even though Imperial looked like they were kind of showing us close to their peak performance, especially when we look at the fragging here from Gokun and Lukam. They did an amazing job of creating that presence. They just couldn't carry it through into the second half, and ultimately all gamers, it almost felt like they were shaking off the dust a little bit in that first half, but then in the second half, they really brought a full performance here. I mean, you could see it in kind of the night and day difference between the opening half and the first half from Du. I mean, he was struggling in those opening duels against Gokun in the first half, but by the time you get to the second half, him and ZY were just feeling it perfectly.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so here we go. These are the highlights, and I mean, yeah, it was that solid first half that kind of gave us a bit of what's the word, hope maybe, or confidence. It depends on which way you're looking at it for Imperial, but realistically speaking, they kind of fell out of favor pretty quick smart in that second half, and does kind of have me worried for the second map here, because it did feel like in all facets, actually, AG kind of had the advantage right there. There was, I think, a couple of rounds which AG kind of looked a little bit, you know, maybe they were a little bit over-eager to sort of take some individual fights and stuff like that, but generally felt like they were a little bit more disciplined as well. So obviously you put all of that together, it goes hand in hand, and you're winning in all facets of the game. Inevitably, you're going to find yourself the win pretty comfortably.
Yeah, now going into map number 2, I definitely have some doubts here. I thought this was going to be a map where maybe Imperial could come through and pull out an early win, but now we go on to Ankara for map number 2, and that's where things can get a little bit scary, I think, for the side of Imperial, because this is one of AG's best maps overall in their pool, and they already showed us a good map on a map they're not normally that confident on. So I feel like Imperial, they're the team that's going to have to come through during this break time, really regroup themselves and show us a much stronger performance in the second map, because I think they've shown us they have the potential at their best to go toe-to-toe with these guys. It just comes down to a lot of these late round situations where the clutch ability, I think, of all gamers is what really stuck out to me.
Yeah, and I know it's sort of early to be saying it, right? But if you're looking at that first map and thinking about what the implications of the group will be, you know, we would say Imperial was probably the team in this group that could actually challenge AG if they can't do it on their own map pick. You would infer that now we're in a position where AG is kind of like, all right, well, we're looking to now top this group pretty comfortably.
Yeah, if they can 2-0 Imperial, I feel like AG is almost a shoo-in to go through at the very least, probably in a number 1 fashion as well, but at the very least, probably a number 2 seed for them. I think the only question mark is going to be how they perform against Kara House later on in the group stage, because that's another strong team here, and I think the only other match I'd look at for them to maybe look at another 2-0 is Pacific, because I think they're just kind of the odd team out here. It's not even that they're necessarily a bad team, it's just the other 3 teams could be argued to be top 4 teams in the world right now.
Yeah, that's not a really fun place to be if you're Pacific Macta, unfortunately. But hey, I mean, in the past, Pacific Macta have been a top 4 team in the world, but it was a long time ago. I'm trying to remember whether or not it was any of these players. I don't know that it was back then when that happened. But look, I don't know. What more really is there to say about this matchup at this point? Obviously, yeah, AG wins map 1. They did a really good job on Black Widow. It was Imperial's map choice. And now we're looking forward to Ankara when we get there for map 2. And yeah, I mean, not a huge amount of faith here for Imperial to close this series out in a reverse sweep fashion.
Yeah, I think looking ahead for them, it's going to be at least keeping the rounds close here, trying to have a good first half for themselves, Gokun kind of getting that confidence to rebound after a rough second half and come back swinging here, because they definitely need that, because there is that potential they could maybe push this to a map 3 series, and even if they go down 2-1, well, like we were saying earlier, even a map win here could be massive implications for their life and potentially making it through to the next stage.
I mean, is it fair to continue to put that highlight onto Gokun, right? Because I felt like he actually did have a fairly impactful first game, right? But maybe you need to see some of the other individuals on this roster step up. We'll have to wait and see what we get when the stats are ready, if they're going to be ready, and you know, maybe highlight 1 or 2 of the individuals on that Imperial roster that do need to sort of pick up the pace a little bit. I don't know that I really got the sense that anyone was lagging behind incredibly hard for Imperial, but I mean, what more can Gokun really do than what he was able to sort of do in that first half? Yes, he slowed down a bit in the second, but he's not the only player on the team, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the other player I noticed that I'd like to see maybe a stronger second map from was Ryuzao. I felt like he was a little bit quiet in this first map, especially in that first half when you had a lot of heavy lifting from Gokun and Lucum. It felt like he was one of those players that could have sealed some rounds, but unfortunately he was one of those that allowed a lot of overturns coming out from those clutches from AG, because there was many rounds where Imperial looked like they had the early advantage, but then just 2 players from AG were able to kind of flip it back around.
All right, well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure really what we're waiting for at this point in time, but the rest of this game is going to be an interesting one. AG have, I suppose, stamped their mark on the start of this tournament, right? I mean, at the moment, they sort of seem like maybe BaiSha is going to be the only team that's really going to be able to challenge them here. And I mean, I guess we'll see what Imperial can do as far as having a conversation between maps 1 and 2 is going to look like. But even then, you know, that's a lot of a shake-up to really make in not a lot of time, right? It depends on how long they've got between these maps. But look, we'll take a look at the MVP before we go too much further and see what things are going to look like in that department. ZY, I mean, not a huge surprise. I think for me it was probably ZY. Maybe Do, he had a bit of a highlight reel in the second half, but ZY had a couple of really important openers in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the big difference on a lot of those stack holds coming out from Imperial. He would kind of just turn the tide, come in, grab a double kill right off the back with an entry multiple times, and it allowed his team to confidently win that first half and really convert those rounds where it didn't look very favorable, because there were several 3- or 4-man stacks where he just kind of led the charge in and did the unthinkable and opened it up completely.
Yeah, 1.2 KD. You've got to be pretty happy with that. And if he can kind of continue that into the next map, I would say then we're sort of expecting it to be a fairly straight run for AG through Imperial. And that's not going to, you know, keep a lot of the Brazilian fans happy, right? I'm sure there's a lot of them around the world, right? Portuguese broadcast going on at the moment as well. They'll be watching there, and they will have seen Imperial go down in, you know, I would say a close but comfortable fashion, right? It was a close result in terms of the round differential, not a huge amount in it, but just the way that the game felt like it played out, it sort of always felt like it was going to be AG that were going to win that one from a certain point. And so, yeah, that's something that the fans over in Brazil are not going to be super pleased to see, so they'll be pulling for their team to come back into the second map and look a little bit better.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they've got to know there's still a fighting chance here, and maybe they can pull it off even though it's not their map pick coming up next. If they somehow make it to Compound, I actually think that's a good map they could potentially pull back, but it's going to be going through one of the hardest maps to get there, and this is where it's going to be really a test of their strength here, because if they needed a map win, this is definitely the time to bring it out, knowing the rest of their opponents on the way are going to be equally hungry. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what map 2 brings us.
Indeed, indeed, and that is going to be Ankara that we're going to be heading toward in just a moment. It is going to be the choice of AG, so things are looking good for them in this series. Hello and welcome back to the CFS Summer Championship 2023. We're here in Vietnam and we are underway with our first game of the day. Imperial and AG going head to head, and right now AG on top 1-0. They win the map choice of Imperial and they do it in fairly convincing fashion.
Yeah, I mean, overall, just a really good map from all gamers. Now they're going into their own pick. They're going to be feeling really confident here, and it's up to Imperial to be the team that puts a stop to it at this point. I mean, it's going to be a tough opponent. They knew that coming into it, and now they've got to really prove it here and dig deep for map number 2.
Yeah, indeed. Map 2 being Ankara, and that being the choice of AG, I think is a whole different kettle of fish, obviously, here for Imperial. They've got a lot of work to do. Not only do they have to come back from that sort of mental aspect of the game, but making a reverse sweep happen here in what is considered to be a pretty good map for AG is a bit of a tough ask. We'll take a little bit of a look back again here at what the maps were. You didn't catch us in the first game. Black Widow was the choice for Imperial. Didn't go well for them. AG up 1-0 right now with Ankara and potentially Compound to play. But there are questions really as to whether or not we're going to get to Compound.
Yeah, it's definitely going to take a lot to push this one the full distance. All gamers as well, looking like a team that could definitely just dominate this first group here. And I don't blame them. They're kind of back for redemption after falling in the CFS finals. This is their first big international chance to show that they're #1 again, and they're doing it right from the start here. So Imperial, they're the team that's really going to have to show us something different in this next map, especially going into a strong map of AGs. It's going to take them pretty much pulling out all the stops to make this one happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one of the questions that I have then for you, for AG in particular, is are we expecting to see that double orb setup once again? Because, look, I think you can get away with it maybe on Black Widow, but is it something you really expect to see getting pulled out on Ankara, a map which maybe doesn't have... Well, I guess to be fair, it does have quite a few long angles, but I mean, I think you would be surprised, right, to see AG continue to bring that out.
Yeah, I would say on their blacklist side, probably not at all. I could see some value on the GR side bringing that out, especially when you look at the angles on A, long, and mid. There's a lot of value that can be had from those positions, but I think at the end of the day, it's really going to be up to how they feel comfortable at the end of the day, because they were able to successfully make it happen in map #1. Now, we're going to hop in and see if they can do it again on map #2.
All right, well, straight into it, and it is going to be AG to silence some of those questions or maybe answer some of those questions. Let's have a look and see what they are going to bring to the table. It's just the one orb so far for Do that I can see, so it looks like it's going to be the 4 rifles set up, at least to kick things off on Ankara.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they position here in this opening round, especially with Do specifically. He's going to be going towards that B bomb site to kick it off. A lot of pressure, though, going to be felt in mid very soon from the side of Imperial. They've got 3 players already pressuring the underpass, trying to get that early information to go their way. Meanwhile, they've also got Ryuzao solo working his way towards this B long position, trying to scout out if anybody's going to be playing on the back side of the B hotel. But I like the setup so far from Imperial. Very aggressive, getting that early information, but all gamers still pretty turtled up.
Yep. Gokhan being very passive for the moment. Happy to just take a chill pill and wait for the rest of the team to maybe try to figure something else out, but not seeing much. Feifei commanding the troops around the map. A very reserved approach from Imperial in particular here. Zhui, you know, he's playing a reasonably forward position. And he might get his opportunity in just a second with LKK around the corner here. It is not going to work out for Zhui. Peek's advantage paying dividends for LKK. The same could be said for ZY, who is quickly able to equalize and gets back out to safety as well.
Yeah, he does take a lot of damage, though, in the process here. He's down to about 20 for the remainder of the round. Very surprising, though, to see Zhui missing that opening pick. It looked like he had the angle perfectly, but Lucum just getting the better of that exchange after the missed shots. So it is going to be Imperial now working their way towards the B bomb side. All 4 players pushing up slowly here. Feifei going to try and sneak through behind the enemy lines. He's going to be spotted out early on, though. Do takes him down. ZQ and ZY as well, able to collapse onto position. Do finds a second, and he's still holding on here to the back of the B bomb site. Do going to be spotted out there on the drop down, still somehow alive on the back of this bomb site. Lucum and Ryuza, though, they can't find their way in very carefully. It is going to be Lucum who tries to force the plant here, but it's just not going to work out for him. Even on the lurk, gets it done, and all gamers, they pick up the opening round.
Yeah, really nice stuff from Do. When you look at what he has to do on that site, you know, he gets those 2 kills, and yeah, that's fantastic, of course, but if you get those 2 kills and then he instantly dies, you start to lose control of the site. The fact that he's able to dance around the boxes and survive makes things even more difficult for Imperial to get in and try to take control of that site. So it's an underrated thing, the survival aspect of what happened in that round. Looks like we're going to have a technical pause here. Something on the Imperial side needing to be sorted out.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the pause, I'm hoping Imperial can show us something a little bit stronger here. They had the right idea, I felt like, in that first round. They got the opening pick even to go their way, but that's when AG things happen. They start poking out for information by themselves and then quickly convert the round back in their favor and just close it out really comfortably. So it's going to be a tough first half, I think, for them, especially knowing this is the side where they actually need to win on, because it is a blacklist-sided map here, and they're already going to be down 1-0 on the GR side for all gamers, which is a risky start already in this position. So I'm hoping at least during this tech pause they have a chance to also just kind of regroup mentally and come back strong here, because this is definitely a map where I don't picture it being quite as close. All gamers is very confident on this map, and this is one they could definitely run away with.
Yeah, first round certainly showed that. Even though they suffered in the initial exchange, they're pretty quickly able to bring that round back to a fairly comfortable win in the end. So what's the issue that's happening in the Imperial booth, I wonder? Hopefully something that can get sorted out pretty quickly. It's interesting always to me, like, how this sometimes plays out, right? You play a whole map of a game and then it's like totally fine, and then as soon as you jump into the second map, some sort of issue crops up somehow.
Yeah, unfortunate timing, but hopefully they can get it sorted out quickly, and then we'll be right back in it here on our second map. But we do have some good ones on the way as well today. I'm actually excited to see BaiSha take the stage later on, as well as our first Vietnamese team appearance. So I'm sure the home crowd eager for that as well. I mean, you could tell actually during the first map, I was surprised that Imperial was the team they were cheering for, knowing that Imperial's the team that's kind of taken out Vietnamese teams in the past. So I'm interested to see kind of who they support from some of these other regions moving forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there might be just an aspect of cheering for the underdog, right, as well. Everyone wants to see the underdog perform well. And in this case, that pretty much means cheering against China. But yeah, you can definitely imagine how things are going to play out when we get into that third match of the day. Cara House and Pacific Macta. I'd imagine will be a little bit louder in here.
Yeah, right now it's really just going to be wondering how things will play out once we return to the server here after our tech pause. It looks like they're just about ready to go here, so we should be commencing in just a few short moments, but it's going to be interesting to see what Imperial has in store for us coming out of this one, because they need it at this point. I'm not sure how the round differential might play out at the end of this group stage, but I'm hoping for their sake they can keep things close, because I can definitely see a world where it might come down to a very close match between these guys and Cara House for that second spot in the group, knowing that they're pretty even-leveled teams, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, interesting prospect. I'm not sure what day that match actually is going to get played, but I suppose that's a conversation for later on in the piece. AG off to a good start here on Ankara, and we'll see what they're going to be able to do in round two, maybe avoiding losing that initial frag and having to deal with the refrag situation.
Yeah, surprising to see, at least initially, Feifei had a second arm out for Imperial. He quickly, though, after missing the opening pick for them, is going to go ahead and swap that out for the AK. But an interesting start here for their opening setup. A 2-2-1 here across the board. Looking for that early information in the mid-tunnel. Going to be Adrian here leading that charge, trying to push forward. Do holding the other side of it, though. He's got the right angle. He's ready to go. And there's not a whole lot of forward pressure just yet, but he's definitely going to be the first to feel it.
I got to say, I think he had a good first map and already started quite nicely in the first round of this second map. So I've got a lot of faith that he's going to be able to lock down that B-bomb site if that's where he continues to play from. A lot of time still available here for Imperial. Setting themselves up outside of A, but it looks like the read is in here, and even now a bit of a push happening in toward mid from ZY. He's going to come close to the likes of Fei on this rotation across. Somehow AG, they've just called it, and they've stacked toward the A site, which is going to prove quite advantageous for them. ZY finds that opener onto Fei as mentioned. And now 4 on 5 for Imperial to work with. This time Shui is able to get his revenge onto LKK. ADRF has opened up that B site though. And the bomb is headed in that direction. So rotation back across now for AG required.
Yeah, now Imperial, they do have control over the back of the B-bomb site, but the numbers are not in their favor here. They've really got to lock things down for a successful post plant. A lot of that pressure is going to be on to ADRF here, and Gokin, who goes down very, very quickly to Zhui to make this one a 4-on-2. Ryuzao and Adrian, they've got to hold on for dear life. At this point, they still are just now getting that C4 down, but it's already a full collapse coming in right around them. ADRF on the off angle. He's got a chance to surprise them. He's able to only find one. The retake comes through, and all gamers find another.
Yeah, it's always hard to get more than one from that position if the spacing is right from the retake, right? Unless they're kind of lining up or they're right next to each other, it generally ends up just being quite a straightforward trade because you don't have anywhere that you can go. You know, you can't dance around, play behind some kinds of cover or anything like that to make life a bit more difficult. You just get pre-fired and you're kind of done. So good stuff from AG, good spacing on the retake. Straight away into round number 3, where once again AG with the 2-1-2 setup. And Imperial, oh, they found themselves an opener there. ZY just gets caught off. Was that through the smoke?
Even though, right on the other side of it now, I'm not sure if they're going to be prepared for him on this off angle. Ryuzao going to be spotted out, almost taken down there, hit for about 90. Now just stuck behind the long door here. Even going to go ahead and back off, though. Not too eager to try and force the issue, but he's already done the damage here. Now he's just got to hang on. Do going to back off as well and really wait to see what Imperial will do here. But I definitely like the approach from Imperial so far, just poking around, putting that early pressure towards the B side of the map.
Yeah, and nothing necessarily required in the mid-round when you've already got the opening kill. You do start to stretch the defense a little bit. You can see like there's no coverage on mid at all right now for all gamers. Only one defender over toward A. If Imperial can gamble towards the correct site, they can really put themselves in a very advantageous position. You do have even being a little active in toward mid and do really wanting to find the timing here. It'll be tough to win 2-on-1. You know, when you're a sniper, you don't really deal with those kinds of trade situations super well. So that still works out favorably for Imperial.
Yeah, now they've just got to close it out here as they work their way towards the B-bomb side. It's really only going to be on to ZQ to try and stall this push. He does have an interesting angle, though, to play if they leave him unchecked here. They really have to be careful of his positioning because this is a nice spot to catch people off guard here. A lot of times people just go and don't check it, and there you go. There's the advantage here. ZQ able to find 2, even swings in for the trade, and now it's down to the 1v2 for Gokin, who's already been spotted out by Even on the back of the triple stack. Here comes the double swing. They get it done, and again, all gamers convert another round.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critical mistake, isn't it, right? You can't be leaving your corners or your positions unchecked, and there's 30 seconds left still. They have to be taking things a little bit slow, and they've got 30 seconds left on the timer. It's not as if you don't have time to try to keep an eye on all of the positions, or at least work your way a little bit slower through the site and clear those angles out. Either way, punished by AG. Now a 1-for-1. And straight up, we're back to the double orm setup, right? ZY is back over to it. And obviously do down earlier in this round, but back to the 4-on-4. And ZY, he is not messing around at all. Gokun, surely has he heard him? Seems very wary. Yeah, and is. So ZY just getting a little bit too antsy and does get punished for it.
Feifei as well. Nice follow-up shot there in mid. Makes this one a 4-on-2. Jouet and ZQ still alive. Jouet, though, he's hungry to answer back with this pick. Spots out both Adrian and Gokun here, but it's not going to matter. He's taken down quickly. ZQ now left in a 1v4, and he is not in a great position here. Stuck on the back of the B-bomb site. Little does he know, that's actually where the bomb's going here. It is going to be Ryuzao and Feifei just creeping up behind him. They get the plant now positioned on the B-bomb site, and he's completely pinched now in this 1-on-4.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I don't really blame him for the decision to go back over to A. That's where you would expect the C4 to be headed. It was the site that had already been taken. Nade, not quite. Oh, it is indeed actually going to catch Gokun. But obviously he's spending a little bit too much time in the wrong side of the map, so even by the time he gets back over to B, there's really not a whole lot to be said about this round for ZQ. Bit of aim prac if nothing else.
Yeah, there's really no time at this point. It's just going to be run down here by the rest of Imperial, but honestly, good play calling coming out from them. They get it done, get their first run on the board, and now hopefully they can start to claw back a little bit more aggressively and make this a much closer game, because one round is still not enough to feel safe just yet.
No, definitely not. And not the way as well that some of these rounds have played out, which have looked really convincing for AG. That one, you know, it felt like a bit of a Hail Mary, maybe ZY just trying to get aggressive, trying to change the pace up. Doesn't really work out for him. You'd expect they'll move back to a bit more of a reserve play style from here, and that is what they do. Do with the single orm setup.
Some nice early utility, though, at least coming out from Imperial, trying to get that presence towards the midsection of the map here, and A long as well. You can see ZY kind of lurking towards that frag on B long. Not going to find anything just yet, though. Playing very reserved still. All gamers, I'd say, across the board today, very surprising in how passive they've been playing.
Just a progression through mid this time from Imperial, so they are changing things up. It's keeping all gamers guessing. Oh, ZY once again able to push quite far forward and get a bit of info over towards B, and that's a critical kill. He spots no one else. He'll now know that with that push coming through from mid, there's really only one place for the attackers to be. Feifei is working hard, doubling down, getting a double kill. Has kind of opened the bomb side up, but the early info for AG has allowed them to rotate across quickly and bring the numbers back in their own favor. Quick little flank coming through from Even here as well. Multi-pronged pincer strike for the retake.
Yeah, they have the numbers here, but they've got to break through quickly. That's a great start, though. Jouet takes down Lukum. Now it's going to be down to the 1-on-3. ADRF trying to hold on, but it's not going to be for long. All gamers find themselves a fourth round here and honestly swing back exactly how they need to. And this is where the pressure is on Imperial. Maybe attack pause potentially coming out from them, not sure, but it is going to be an interesting one to see how they try and rebound here, because this looks like a significantly stronger map for all gamers so far.
Yeah, I mean, you called it, right, even before we got to watch this map, and I think I've got to agree with you that you've called it correctly in this case. AG are just looking supreme on this map at the moment. I mean, they did drop one round, but felt like it was a bit of a miscellaneous round, bit of an individual error that makes the difference in that one. Aside from that, it has looked almost 100% from AG so far. Imperial will set themselves up outside A, but they haven't got the C4 here, so it's not as if they're 100% committed necessarily to this. We'll see what they can do, and if they are able to then open up the site, you can call one of the rotators across from the default on the other side of the map, collect the C4 on the way, and then get into the site itself.
Yeah, it's interesting so far, Imperial. They've put a lot of emphasis on this mid-control play, but All Gamers has been kind of reluctant to try and challenge onto these positions, really playing a lot safer on the back side of it. So Imperial, they're going to get that opportunity again to try and sneak through mid, but this is where Even and Do have a lot of coverage that's not necessarily visible to the side of Imperial to work with. Even gonna have a chance here, but he's already taken down very quickly. Now Do has to hang on. He's already good for one here. Does he know there's one underneath? Yes, he does. Already 2 big kills to lock this one down, but look at ADRF. He finds a second as well. ZY, though, lurking in the shadows, gets the trade, and now things look a little bit risky here for Feifei as he tries to get this bomb plant.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to do so just yet. ZY punishes him as well. Trying to take the one-on-one, and Goken's just, again, kind of left him out high and dry. ZY, once again, hiding around that corner. Sure, Goken might be able to find the angle there, but too easy on the trade from Jue. It's all working perfectly for AG right now. Just too much information control, and the rotation's way too quick for Imperial to deal with at the moment. AG seem like they know at all times where Imperial is going.
Yeah, right now it's looking like a really strong half in the making for All Gamers. There's only 3 more rounds left in the half as well. If this is an 8-1 half, it's almost an unwinnable situation for Imperial, so they really need to get at least a couple more rounds on the board before they switch sides here, especially considering this is a blacklist-sided map, so them being already down on this side doesn't hold well for their future, but it's going to be ZY who already gets the opening pick, 5-on-4 right off the start of this one, and All Gamers again looking strong to start off the round.
Yep. ZY's been an absolute beast in this series. 8-5 at the moment. 7 out of 8 of those kills have been headshots. So not a whole lot you can do against him right now. And he's putting himself in a position to potentially get back-to-back MVPs, I dare say, at this point. Let's see what he can do here as well. Even helping out in this case. He was spotted. Ryozao at least will be able to get 1 frag back for Imperial. LKK does the same. And that sounds good in isolation, but when you think about it, it's just equalizing kills at this point in time. Shui, he had no idea where Ryozao was.
Yeah, now the pressure's on to Even to lock down this B-bomb site. He's got a couple players nearby, though. It is going to be a full rotation coming through. Lukum, I don't even know how he knew that he was behind that box, but ZQ gets the shots anyways to take him down. It is going to be the bomb, though, rotating into the A-bomb site. Now they have a full chance to plant, set up for that post-plant, and get things locked down however they want to play this one out. But a pretty quick rotate is actually coming through already. Yeah, it's going to be Even and ZQ already in the A connector. This is going to be tough to hold off.
Now are they aware that they're going to be coming through this direction rather than from the spawn side? Seems like Goken is all over that. Won't make the mistake of missing the shot against Even. Now onto ZQ. Can he again show us another highlight? Unfortunately unable to do so. A bit too much to do in the 2-on-1, and Imperial, they convert themselves a second, so they, continue to hang on. But they still don't have that real good grasp on this half that you'd want to see yet. Time's obviously running out.
It always feels like a very close battle, even when they're scraping these rounds by, and it's only been 2 of them out of the 7, so it's going to be some early pressure on mid. And Do almost gets that kill onto ADRF, gets the leg shot off before having to fall back here, even getting contested on the mid pillars as well. Has to be a bit cautious for the remainder, as they do again give a lot of mid control over to Imperial. This seems to be where they've been able to find some of these openings. I'm curious to see if they'll maybe get a little aggressive on it one of these rounds here on the side of AG, but Imperial, they've got the time on their side, still 1:45 to work with, but they're still hungry for these mid picks.
A lot of nade usage out from AG at the moment, but not finding too much success with those. Pretty nicely timed smoke over toward the A-bomb site. We'll keep Imperial at bay for now, and Do spots the info in mid. ZY as well is able to strike there. So straight away, All Gamers, as soon as there's an opportunity, they're able to take the advantage and run with it. Shui again has locked this position down against LKK ever since losing that first duel. He's on for more. 6-2, AG continue their rampage on Ankara.
Yeah, now down to the final round of the half in Imperial. They are in desperate need of it here. Otherwise, it's going to be a 7-2 half against them to try and close out on their defensive side, which for them is normally their weaker side. So curious to see what they're going to do on this final round to maybe change up the pace, but it kind of seems like the usual suspects here. You've got the mid set up already for Imperial, a lot of early pressure towards A long, and AG as well, playing nice and comfortable in the 2-1-2.
Extra player being rotated back toward the A site here for AG. Sensing the pressure in that direction. ZY is fairly advanced in his position, so he's getting a bit of information for his team. Knowledge is power, so they say. Once again, we'll turn our attention toward Jue. Oh, almost got the timing wrong there, and in fact probably did, as LKK around the corner does punish him for that over-aggression. Luckily for AG, they still have members on this site, but they're starting to get run down, and TQ, he was spotted as well behind that box. ZY might be the saving grace, particularly if Do can find one on the entry. Huge fight to happen right now on the back lines, but it won't work for ZY. And it's just Do. It's not as if AG didn't have the early rotation and the players in the position to win that round, but they just couldn't win a single duel, basically.
And that'll be the half here, 6-3. A nice closeout from Imperial to at least secure the final round here before the side switch. But the big question now is, will that be enough? A 3-6 half still going to be difficult to overcome as they now go on to the GR side to try and see what they can do with a solid defensive half. But all gamers still, all they need is 4 here on the attacking side. And for them, this is usually where they're a lot more aggressive and comfortable.
Is that a missed smoke out on the A site from Imperial? Looks like it's gone a little bit too deep. Not going to be keeping AG at bay. Re-smoke will come through this time. So no harm, no foul in the end.
Yeah, right now it seems like AG, they're just kind of poking around to see how many players are actually playing on this A bomb site. They've already spotted out 1, maybe 2 of them, but it is going to be difficult to figure out where they want to execute just yet. It is going to be Jue looking for those openings towards the mid position here, trying to find out if anyone's actually holding on to the GR spawn, which is pretty much exposed, but Feifei here gets caught a little bit too over-eager on the push out of vents. He's going to be taken down by ZQ, and now all gamers have the go-ahead to push in towards this A bomb site.
Yeah, Rayo's out now, going to take that position up and try to run with it, but he can't go anywhere. There are players back behind him, and ZY just once again continues this tear on the entry roll. He's even going to push even further in on that rotation, and Imperial have nothing to do. A 4K from ZY. He makes it look so easy there for AG.
Yeah, I mean, right now on the blacklist side, that's the guy you've got to be scared of, sitting at 14-7 in the second map, and he doesn't show any signs of slowing down just yet. It is going to be up to Imperial to try and find a way to change the pace in this round because their time is running out. It's already 3 away from a map victory for all gamers, and that'll give them a series if they're able to pull this one off. It is a 3-man stack, though, to kick off this next round towards the A bomb site, so they're adding a little bit of extra pressure on the side of Imperial, but as we've seen, sometimes even the stack isn't enough to stop AG.
Doesn't look like AG is going to try anything too tricky on this attacking side yet. More than happy to just 5-man into the A-bomb side. An absolute artillery barrage over the top. Hasn't worked out. ADRF, he's been able to find himself a couple and holds the fort for Imperial. Do now in the 1-on-3 has at least secured the first. The rotation still yet to come across. He has the C4. Or does he? He hasn't been able to find it. Finally picks it up. And maybe that's thrown Imperial for a bit of a loop. They haven't actually opted to go straight into that A site. They think maybe he's rotated off. So he'll be given the time to make this plan happen, and then he can try to play out the 1-on-2. It's just going to be a question of whether or not he is able to gather the info before this flank comes through, and, well, he won't see much. Big decision to make now. Does he go toward B? If he goes toward B, he has a chance of winning the round.
Yeah, he seems to have the read here. This is a really good decision from Du coming out. Senses that the long flank could be coming through, but now it's all about the timing here. He doesn't have a lot of time to work with to clear this and make sure he gets the bomb down before the counter rotation comes through from Imperial. He's going to get it down quickly. He plants it for the safe off angle on the back of sight, so he's definitely playing the correct position you'd want to be in this situation, but it's still two of the best to go up against here with Goken and Lukum on the way.
Yeah, but if he can strike with this first shot, then there's a chance. Excellent one onto Goken, now down to the one-on-one, and that favors Du in this position. He makes no mistake, a huge 2-on-1, which in fact was actually a 3-on-1 if we take into account what happened earlier. And if there wasn't a nail already in the coffin for Imperial, I think that's it.
Yeah, it's got to be a bit demoralizing to come back and try and win after a round like that, but this is where they've got a fighting chance to do just that. It's going to be Jouet, though, who already gets the opener. Lukum goes down, and it's a 5-on-4 as All Gamers gets more and more aggressive.
What's going on here?
Look at this. Atri just sneaks behind, gets the easy double kill, falls back uncontested, and now Imperial, they've got a chance to win this round.
Yeah, but they've lost full control of B, so that's going to be the big problem for them. If AG can actually get into B and get that plant down quickly, then the time starts to work against Imperial. At this point, though, I mean, it's taken them a little while to get into B and get the plant, and that has given time for the rotation to come across. Ryu Zhao is starting to make his way through. Big, important duel right now for ZY. If he can get the better of Goken, then that is really going to open things up for AG. Imperial biding their time, that is for sure. Are they running that timer down a little bit too much? I'm starting to wonder. Goken does catch ZY, but Shui on the flank. He could be absolutely massive here. Has to be. It's another 1-on-3 for All Gamers, but he makes it close. Is there time for the defuse here? Fei looks like he's going to be able to get it. Seems happy with the result. This one's going around.
Wow, very close one there. It was just down to a matter of seconds. You thought All Gamers might have had a chance. There was a great flank. And even in these close situations, they don't have the numbers, but it doesn't matter. They almost scrape by in almost every single round. And this is what you've got to be prepared for when you're up against a team like All Gamers. But this time, Imperial, they're coming back swinging. Goken able to get the first kill, already takes down Du on A long. The rest of All Gamers, they're going to back off quickly here. They don't want anything to do with this fight. So now it is going to be up to them to try and close this one out. They've got the man advantage, but ADRF and Ryu Zhao both at half HP or less.
Yeah, a lot of the util usage here from AG to try to help take control of mid, or at least try to force Imperial away from that area of the map. It's a fairly intelligent rotation across, though, from Imperial. They've decided to 3-stack over toward B this time, and that is where All Gamers are headed. So not only do they have the advantage in numbers, but they also have the advantage in positioning at the moment. Lots of info gained by Fei with that push out from Bence. He doesn't see anything outside of A, and so the players over toward B, well prepared. LKK finds himself the double, even the triple, and goes for more. Can't quite nail it, but the trade is in, and Imperial, they survive another round.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, especially backs against the wall. And then all of a sudden, they've come to life here. 5 rounds on the board, starting to get things a little bit closer towards that tie, but they still have a lot to be done to make that their reality. All Gamers, though, this time it's going to be a 4-man push aggressively towards A-Long early on for that information. Nobody meeting them on the other side of it from Imperial. It's going to be Goken sniping backside of mid, so there's really no contest here to do in this position. But this is a bit of an awkward stack as well. There's 3 on site, but they're pretty much all stacked on this staircase corner.
Yeah, I don't mind this from AG, right? This is what worked for them at the start of the half, and they're going to go back to the tried and true and see if they can make that happen. Smoke in for the connector, and Shui able to find the entry frag. It is ZY as well, making some kind of inroads, and Ryu Zhao, he even backed away through that smoke. He didn't decide to try to fight for the site with his teammates. That's allowed AG in 5-on-3 for the post plant. This looks pretty dire now for Imperial.
Yeah, there's almost no way back into this one. The smoke screen makes it even more challenging. They're going to spot ZQ on the back of sight here, but they've got to push Shun. There's no time left to work with. Even, he's got the angle to shut it down. Good for one. ZQ good for the second. Goken left alone, falls to Zhui, and it's on to match point we go.
Yeah, just way too much control of that site. And if you're trying to three-man retake through one really tight position, a choke point really, it's not much of a chance in that one for Imperial. So 1 round required for AG to secure the clean and easy 2-0. That's the way I would describe it if this ends up being a 10-5.
Yeah, a lot of pressure onto Imperial, and it seems to be maybe a bit of a missed call here. They've stacked it A, but All Gamers, they have their whole team positioned here to execute now onto the B bomb site. The flash comes over the top from Zhui. Here comes the push. Goken goes down without a fight, and this could be it here. Lukum now trying to force his way back in through the B hotel. He's naded out of position, and All Gamers, they have full control, but Adrian already on the rotation through the GR spawn is able to find one, but it's going to be a tough retake to make happen.
Oh, you say that, but I mean, this is a bit of an awkward position from AG to play from. They can't find themselves the ability to kind of spread out on this post plant. They're all sort of locked into the site itself, and granted there are a lot of angles to clear, but it's not as if there's going to be a flank to deal with right now. Imperial have that in mind at the very least. Time now starting to run down. Ryozao will open the account initially, but they have to be pretty quick here, Imperial. I wonder if they've left it a little bit too late, even if they find these kills, and that seems to be the name of the game here for AG. Defuse is on just in time by the looks of things.
Wow. Literally down to the millisecond there for Imperial. Cutting it close, to say the least, but they keep it alive at least for a moment longer, but they've got to do that 3 more times if they even want a chance here to take this one into overtime. All Gamers, though, it's just coming down to a little bit of a misplay on their late positions there and going down a bit too soon. But now Imperial, they're going to be playing pretty much the same setup this time around. They've shown they've got a pretty successful retake towards that B bomb site, which makes them a lot more eager to keep stacking things towards A.
Well, a bit of a different approach this time from AG. Much faster up in mid is ZY. He's going to see if he can maybe do a bit of damage there. Wouldn't necessarily be the worst of decisions to maybe just have him try to lurk in through mid, flank into the A site potentially, and let the rest of the team go into A, but not ending up as the option of choice. He's going to go back and regroup with the rest of the squad, and it's Du that'll push his way forward instead with the sniper. Interesting choice to put the Orm there rather than a rifle. If it's going to be the A split, which it definitely looks like it will be, but hey, when you're going to hit shots like that, then maybe they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, no rotation either from Imperial after that initial pick. I'm surprised Imperial hasn't moved one of these 3 players off of the A bomb site. It leaves their mid completely exposed here. If Du wants to keep pushing through, there's really no one who can actually stop him except for Goken if he's still checking that angle, but it requires Goken to basically cover half of the map by himself.
Tough ask, that's for sure. 30 seconds left to get that plan down. AG, they have really drawn that rotation across. They could literally walk into A right now, and it looks like that's what they're going to do. They don't even need it. 10-6 the scoreline, and AG secure the 2-0 over Imperial. A commanding victory, it has to be said. I mean, a little bit of a cleaner sheet there on the second map than the first map, but either way, it didn't really feel like AG had to kick it into second gear on Ankara. I feel like maybe they did have to do that on Black Widow a little bit. It took them a little while to kind of get rolling, but by and large, they were dominant in that series, and it sort of sets the pace for the CFS Summer Championship for sure.
Yeah, really just a good statement from them in their opening set here of the tournament, and now we'll see if they can keep forward just as strong here, but at the same time, Imperial, it almost felt like, especially in this map too, they put the pressure on them just a little bit too late, because those last 4 or 5 rounds actually looked incredibly close compared to the rest of the map.
Yep. Yep, so lots to think about for Imperial now. I mean, you were talking about during that series that maybe if Imperial can at least take a map off of AEG, that can stand them in a good position going into some of the future matches that they'll have to play, or you know, potentially in a tiebreaker scenario for this group to make it out into playoffs. They failed to do so now. So the job gets a little bit more difficult as they go a little bit deeper now into the rest of this group and the rest of the matches they have to play. There's more onus now on actually winning those matches.
Yeah, I mean, once you go down 0-2, you almost have to win the rest of your matches at this point to be guaranteed a top 2 spot. It's really going to be up to them to have a really good showing moving forward. Otherwise, if they go down to either Kara or Pacific, they could just be down and out at this point, which would be crazy to see as one of those teams we looked at as potentially a top 4 contender here.
Yeah, indeed. So, yeah, Imperial, I think they're feeling a little bit awkward about that one. They don't seem super happy with things, obviously, taking a look back at how they're doing in their booth. Would they have come into that one maybe with the expectation that it was going to be as tough as it was? I'd say probably, yeah. They would have been realistic about their chances, but yeah, it definitely felt like they maybe left a little bit lacking in Black Widow. The start was so good, it looked really nice for them, but unfortunately, yeah, just not able to convert much from that second half at all, and so that's kind of what's let them down here. And a big job to do as they head a little bit deeper now into the rest of the group here. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to be like a veto strategy or anything like that. I think it's probably too early to call with regard to Imperial at this point. But as far as they're concerned, yeah, some heavy lifting to do tomorrow when they come back for their next game.
Yeah, definitely some added pressure, but also some relief here for all gamers now because they've got that wiggle room to work with. If something does happen to go wrong in one of their other matchups, they're probably going to be in a really good position regardless to at least grab a top 2 spot unless they have a really overwhelming match somehow go against them, which after that doesn't seem too likely at this point.
Yeah, indeed. So I guess the conversation now turns toward who might be the MVP for that last map. I would probably be voting for ZY again. Felt like he was kind of the difference maker in the vast majority of those rounds for all gamers. Are you on the same train of thought as I am?
Yeah, I think in terms of overall impact, he's probably the MVP. In terms of like mentality impact, though, I just think back to that 1v3 from Do. That's got to be really devastating to deal with for Imperial because that could have turned the tides maybe a little bit faster. Yeah. Could have seen a different outcome there if they're able to close out rounds like that. But I think those are the rounds that are going to be in the back of Imperial's minds for a while now. Yeah,
fair. I would almost feel a bit disappointed if I was Do because, you know, he had a pretty good map in map 1, doesn't get the MVP there. I think he had a good map in map 2 as well, I'll give you that, but I'm just not sure that he was the most valuable player. That's the only sort of hang up for me. So if it ends up being ZY back-to-back, which, you know, again, to me wouldn't be super surprising, you almost feel as Do like, oh, you know, what do I have to do to win an MVP in one of these maps? But plenty more time where that came from. We're obviously expecting AG to not only get through the group, but also to make it into the playoffs and probably quite deep in the playoffs as well. So there's going to be a lot of games for them to play over the course of this week. And boy, what a week it's going to be. I mean, 3 best-of-3s a day for 4 days and then into best-of-5s for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I struggle to remember a CROSSFIRE event that has had this broad of a format. So something that these teams are maybe going to have to get used to, something that we're going to have to get used to as well. We'll take a look back at how that last matchup did play out. And 10-6, as we saw, was the scoreline. ZY leading from the front with the KD and the kills per round. He really did have that impact across the board.
Yeah, surprising Shui actually as well. Very, very strong map for him, 1.67. So could be another potential player that could contest that MVP. And I think for him, there wasn't any super shining moments where he stood out to me winning these clutches, but he was always one of those guys who was just a guaranteed 1 frag per round. And over the course of the map, that can make a lot of difference too.
Yeah. No one really setting the scoreboard alight for Imperial, unfortunately. ADRF, he was close. He was doing okay, but yeah, I mean, as far as the numbers are concerned, it's a pretty unfortunate-looking scoreboard, let's say, for Imperial, and you're going to have to be putting up better numbers than that.
Yeah, they really need to. But as we take a look at the MVP, it's going to be interesting to see who finalized that position for themselves. We had ZY in the first map, and it's going to be ZY again here, back-to-back MVPs. Like you said, this guy just kind of led the charge for his team, being kind of the best entry fragger I think we saw across the server so far here, and really putting his team in a confident position to move forward with that 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even looking at that from like a statistical perspective, right? Because you could say, okay, Jouet had a bit of a better KD in that last map. He might have had an argument to be in the MVP position here, but actually I think just from the eye test, right, ZY looked like he was the one that was kind of finding the impact frags, and that's one of the important things to kind of consider when you're watching games like this, is that, yeah, sometimes someone can have a really good KD, but if those frags are, you know, like in a 5-on-3 where you've kind of almost already won the round, you know, and they're all coming through like that retake that we saw on the B site, are those kills as impactful as what ZY was able to do, the 2 frags to actually get you into the site? Well, probably not at that point. So to me, that's kind of where my methodology comes from with at least in my opinion, choosing ZY for this one. So I'm happy to see that he did actually get the MVP for this game. 2 MVPs already. I don't know if we're going to start at like a tally at this point, but it's going to be hard to beat today. Someone's going to have a good series next series. Someone's going to have a good series in the 3rd series if they want to even just equalize and get themselves a couple of MVPs to match what ZY's been able to put on the table to start off the CFS Summer Championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to match that kind of impact. I just think back to the round where he just kind of waltzes into the A bomb site and gets a 4-kill entry all by himself, and the rest of the team just stands there while he closes it out. So this guy is going to be someone that I think other teams really have to look at and study how they can find a way to shut him down, because they really need to put some pressure on him in future matches if you want any hopes of taking down a team like All Gamers.
Yeah, so as we've said, it was a 2-0 today for All Gamers over Imperial. You guys probably saw that, 10-7 in the first map, 10-6 in the second map. It was Black Widow and Ankara, just for those that are, again, maybe wondering, just joined us, something like that. It was Black Widow, the choice by Imperial. They played that first. Looked reasonably competitive to an extent, but Imperial kind of just fell off a little bit, and AG ran away with it. And then, yeah, map 2, even though the scoreline is very similar, it felt a little bit more dominant from AG in map 2, and I think you have to say they very easily deserved to find the 2-0 today over Imperial. Imperial just didn't cut the mustard.
Yeah, now the question is, can All Gamers continue this forward in this group? I mean, they've got Kara House and Pacific as their next 2 opponents on the way to try and basically go through a perfect group stage, which is kind of their target. We are going to look at the overall group impact now after this first match. Obviously, you'll have All Gamers with the early lead in this group, but we actually have the other match in this group later today as well, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes things up, because if you have maybe a more decisive win from one of those 2 teams later on, they could actually take the early #1 seed.
Sure. Not much to really update you as far as Group A is concerned, but once we see GV and BaiSha, there'll be something to speak to there. Again, you know, haven't really seen too many of the results so far from this group just yet. So yes, AG's at the top, Imperial's in the 2nd spot, but well, they're definitely not going to hold on to 2nd at the end of today. Someone is going to get a dub, either Pacific Macta or Kara. They'll move into 2nd place, and Imperial will be either 3rd or 4th, depending on how dominant that series is going to be on the other matchup. But yeah, still obviously early days as far as these groups are concerned. We've got 4 days worth of groups, so it doesn't really tell us a whole lot just yet, taking a look at these graphics. And I think what will be, you know, maybe more interesting to see and hear from is obviously the interview, which I believe we will be getting at some point here, and what AG have to say about that matchup. How do they, you know, feel they went as far as their results? Because I think it's obviously always nice to get yourself a win to start things off, but how actually did they feel they performed? Is there anything to improve on, or you know, how are things looking going into probably into tomorrow for AG, obviously at this point. But take a look back at the highlights here, and I mean, you'll probably see no shortage of AG highlights, if it's even anyone but ZY.
Yeah, no surprise to see him here in a lot of this highlight reel. I mean, he was that impact player across the board that AG needed. Do here, though, beautiful 1v3 clutch to keep his team in that 8-3 lead. Actually surprised to see we went from an 8-3 lead situation to a 10-6 at the end of the day. AG almost letting it slip a few times there, but at the end of the day, you got to thank someone like ZY who helped close it out, and I really hope that's who's going to be in the interview here.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be hoping to hear from him. Oh, I wouldn't mind hearing from Du as well. You know, a newer player that we haven't really maybe seen as much from. I thought he had a pretty solid series, so I wouldn't mind hearing from him. I'm trying to see who it is, but can't quite get a look in. Overall, though, yeah, very solid stuff today from AG. Nothing to really be disappointed about. I'm sure they'll go back to the hotel now and have a bit of a relax, because that's all you need to do, right? One game a day for the teams is, I feel like, fairly easy, especially when it's a 2-0.
Yeah, nice and easy day. Now they've got to just worry about the other two teams in their group, I'm sure. Cara House, another tough opponent for them on the way, and a home favorite here as well, could give them some trouble. But you know what? That's a great start, especially when you know that's one of the more tough teams in your group, already down 2-0. That's got to give them a lot of confidence to carry forward into their next two matches.
Yeah, good spot to be in for all gamers for Group B, but discussion now has to start to turn toward Group A, right? We're going to get to see GV and BaiSha in just a second. Obviously, that's going to be quite an interesting matchup where we, again, we'll see a Chinese team and sort of see whether or not they're going to look as dominant maybe as what all gamers were able to in this first match, or if they're maybe going to come in a little bit slower, not quite as hot. Obviously, Europe is going to be quite interested to see what GV is going to be able to bring to this event as well. And I know that some of those members on the GV roster feel like they can compete in this event. Jury's out as to whether or not that'll be the case. Like, in my personal opinion, I've seen the European teams almost always play second or third fiddle to the likes of China and Brazil, but maybe this is where that storyline starts to change.
Yeah, I'd love to see something big out of them. And you know what? Sometimes the best matches you have are when there's no expectations on the table. You just come out, you give your best performance. Maybe BaiSha might underestimate them in that matchup going into it, because I feel like, especially in their group, they're probably looked at as the team where everyone else is kind of saying, oh, we definitely should beat that team. The rest is where it's kind of up in the air. But for GV, that could play to their advantage, because I feel like a lot of teams probably didn't put in a ton of prep against them.
Yeah, that's a good point. They might have focused their attention onto the other Chinese teams, onto the Brazilian teams, and tried to sort of put all their eggs in the basket of where they think it's going to be a little bit more important in the playoff stage. But obviously, before you get there, you do still have to get through the group stages, and so there is an angle here for GV, which I know is a team that has a lot of experience as well. And that's one thing that I think sort of benefits them a lot, right? They've been on stages like this, and in fact bigger stages than this one as well, and they've had good results on those stages in the past. So it's not as if they're going to be incapable of contesting in that next series. But yeah, that's what's coming up in just a minute. Obviously, we've still got a little bit to get through here for the first match of the day. Just to remind you, it was all gamers that got the dub over Imperial. 2-0, pretty solid stuff there for them. Now organising an interview on the stage, and I think that's going to be ready in just a minute or so. So, yeah, I mean, looking forward to heading into that second series.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and I think there's a lot of good matches on the way. We're going to see pretty much a little bit of everything here, I think, but we are going to go ahead and throw it to an interview with the winners, all gamers, and you know what? They did a great job here, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, me too. I think at this point, obviously, super keen to see what they have to say about that match, so let's go ahead and send it down to the stage.
Được chúc mừng On Gamers với chiến thắng mở màn trong ngày thi đấu hôm nay. Thưa quý vị, và ngay bây giờ xin được mời tất cả quý vị chúng ta hãy cùng nhau hướng mắt về sân khấu để thực hiện phỏng vấn cùng với một đại diện đến từ On Gamers.
Vâng, và thưa quý vị, ngày hôm nay thì có lẽ rằng quý vị cũng đã theo dõi được trận đấu vừa rồi thì chắc chắn là quý vị cũng thấy rằng là đây, thành viên xuất sắc nhất MVP của chúng ta ngày hôm nay chính là ZY. Và bây giờ thì mình sẽ cùng hỏi một chút xíu. Đầu tiên thì ZY có thể gửi một vài lời chào đến với tất cả khán giả ở trường quay cũng như thông qua livestream được không ạ?
向那个正在看直播和现场的那个全球观众介绍一下你自己。
大家好，我是成都 AG 的
Xin chào mọi người, mình là ZY đến từ On Gamers, Trung Quốc.
Và không biết ngay lúc này sau khi giành chiến thắng mở màn trong ngày thi đấu hôm nay thì bạn có cảm xúc như thế nào ạ?
然后这是不是那个今年比赛第2个胜利嘛？然后你的感想是如何的？
感受是非常好的吧，因为我们是小组赛的第1场嘛，然后也是取得了胜利，就是比较开心吧。
Chúng tôi rất vui mừng vì là đội giành chiến thắng đầu tiên trong khuôn khổ CFS Summer 2023, vì đây cũng là trận đầu tiên trong nhóm B và chúng tôi rất là vui mừng.
Dạ, và khi mà bạn vừa trải qua trận đấu mở màn vừa rồi, trong ngày thi đấu đầu tiên thì bạn đánh giá là đối thủ của mình như thế nào và đâu là đối thủ nặng ký nhất mà bạn cảm thấy là phải thi đấu vô cùng khó khăn?
然后你觉得今天那个巴西的 Imperial 那个队伍吧，然后你最对哪个选手有那个最深刻的印象？对。
RKK 和 Goken 吧，因为就是 RKK 是第一张图他们的 ACE 嘛，然后就是枪法都比较准，还有 Goken 的闭门的手枪。
Tôi rất ấn tượng với Goken và LK đến từ IPM. Goken thì gọi là trải nghiệm bắn súng của bạn rất là ấn tượng. Chúng tôi rất là ấn tượng với Goken.
Đối diện với rất nhiều những đối thủ như vậy và trong suốt một thời gian dài như vậy thì không biết là đối với bạn, bạn cảm thấy là điều gì khó khăn nhất trong suốt quá trình thi đấu?
然后在那个比赛中途吧，然后你最难点是什么？
难的点可能就是因为我们对他们不是很熟悉嘛，然后就是可能要通过场上的临场复盘来复盘他们的站位。
Có lẽ là đây là chúng tôi có rất ít cơ hội để gọi là tương tác với IPM. In Brazil đây cũng có thể là một điểm gọi là điểm khó đối với chúng tôi trong cuộc thi đấu lần này.
Và rất quan thân mến, thực tế thì khi đến với mùa giải năm nay thì On Gamers cũng được kỳ vọng là một trong những đội tuyển rất là nặng ký và rất là xuất sắc. Thì mục tiêu của On Gamers khi đến với CFS Summer Championship năm 2023 là gì ạ?
然后你们对今年的 CFS 23年那个夏季世锦赛的目标是什么呢？
我们的目标肯定先是小组出线吧。
Mục tiêu của chúng tôi chắc chắn là đạt đến chức vô địch.
Wow, rất là ấn tượng đúng không ạ? Và cực kỳ phong độ cũng như là rất là tự tin. Như vậy thì để thể hiện được cái sự tự tin của mình và niềm tin của mình thì bạn có thể thể hiện một vài động tác hoặc là một vài cái hành động, một vài cái biểu tượng ở trên sân khấu này cho khán giả cũng như tất cả những người hâm mộ được xem được không ạ? Thấy tinh thần của mình đó ạ?
然后你可以就随意用一个动作来表示你对今年的赛事有一个决心嘛？对。对，任意一个动作，对也可以。
1, 2, 3. Cảm ơn người rất nhiều đã dành cho ZY một tràng vỗ tay. Cảm ơn bạn rất nhiều ạ.
Và một lần nữa xin được chúc mừng cho On Gamers với chiến thắng mở màn trong ngày thi hôm nay. Và thưa quý vị, ngay lúc này chúng ta sẽ cùng nhau đến với trận đấu tiếp theo và chúng tôi sẽ quay trở lại sau một ít phút nữa.
Và mình sẽ nghỉ giải lao cho ít phút trước khi đến với trận đấu tiếp theo nha mọi người nha. Nhưng các bạn đừng đi đâu cả, nếu đang trực tiếp ở trường quay ngày hôm nay, chúng ta hãy nán lại đến cuối chương trình bởi vì mình vẫn còn rất nhiều phần quà ở phía trước đang chờ đón các bạn. Còn nếu đang theo dõi thông qua màn ảnh trực tiếp của chúng tôi thì nhớ là đừng chuyển kênh, bởi vì sao ạ? Chúng ta sẽ quay trở lại với trận đấu tiếp theo sau khoảng 15 đến 20 phút nữa. Xin cảm ơn ạ.
Championship point, all gamers will be
đến giờ thì không ai của Imperial đây cả ở đây rồi. Ngay lập tức thì sẽ có giật hỗ trợ đến từ Lucas. Chúng ta cùng chết với mọi người mình người là và Shady lên thành này. Cuộc tiến công vẫn tiến công và đó là hai mạng trong mạnh. Nào Imperial đang bị mù. Đây là một góc một mà phát hiện ra người thứ hai đối với Yomi. Và đó là IQ bắt được CROSSFIRE. Nhưng trong số Nga có người và IQ đang móc một mạng lên cho David. Liệu cơ hội làm rất nhiều thứ đây. Một thằng và IQ đã một kill Imperial vẫn chưa cần.
Montanha Russa, 자기소개 먼저 부탁해볼게요.
Tá, meu nome é Adriano Faria, meu nick in game é DRF, tenho 25 anos e faço parte da equipe da Imperial.
Meu nome é Felipe, meu nick dentro do jogo é FF e eu sou o capitão da Imperial.
Meu nome é Caio, meu nick é Goten, tenho 23 anos e sou da Imperial.
Meu nome é Lucas, meu nick é Lucão, tenho 22 anos e faço parte da equipe da Imperial.
Meu nome é Denison, tenho 24 anos, meu nick em jogo é Riozão e eu faço parte da equipe da Imperial.
Meu nome é Vinícius, meu nick no jogo é VN, tenho 21 anos, faço parte da equipe da Imperial, sou substituto.
E o programa vai ser dividido em 2 dias, como eu tinha falado para vocês. A gente vai comer umas comidas aqui do Jeju e vamos fazer umas programações, fazer tipo umas atividades pequenas aqui em Jeju. Vocês acham que vai ser que tipo de gravação hoje?
Só conhecer a cidade, não?
Jogar boliche, pô.
Conhecer a cidade, conhecer a cidade.
Jogar boliche.
Jogar boliche.
Jogar
futebol.
boliche.
Jogar futebol.
Futebol. Brasil.
Comida.
Você vocês falaram de comida. Tem alguma comida que vocês querem comer?
Churrasco. Barbecue.
KFC, cara.
Ah, alguma comida daqui, cara. Daqui, porra.
Picanha.
KFC.
KFC, então fala pra ele.
Pô, já falei já, cara. KFC.
Não, KFC, Lucas.
Vou falar que eu nunca comi, cara.
É, das coisas que vocês falaram, nenhuma tá preparada.
Ele só tá tentando...
Não tem. E aí vamos terminar dando um adeus, assim.
Ni hao? Ok.
1, 2, 3.
Posso fazer um history disso, mano?
Pode, cara.
Olha isso aí, cara. É BBB agora aqui na Coreia.
Caralho, olha aí, cara.
É brincadeira, hein, amigo?
300 câmeras, cara. Ah, ainda vem mais uma aqui, ó.
Essa aqui é a nossa.
Essa aqui é a
câmera.
Tua vida de cineasta, cara. Agora é isso aí.
É um dia com a Imperial, mano. Nós somos pessoas very happy.
Vai cair.
Mano, acho que a gente vai fazer um passeio muito divertido num parque.
Eu também.
Pessoal, a gente está indo para uma das praias mais famosas aqui em Jeju.
Como é o nome da praia? Como você chama?
Quaqui.
Careca.
Ele pergunta qual será a pontuação de vocês no CFS.
Campeão.
Primeiro.
Campeão. Champion. Fefe, você que é o capitão da equipe, Fefe, você acha que o nosso time está confiante?
Exato. Acho que nosso time está preparado, bem confiante. Só manter a calma dentro do jogo que não, tudo certo.
Tanto
E você,
mentalmente
Lucas?
quanto emocionalmente?
Emocionalmente tem que ir só dentro do jogo. Você acha que a gente está preparado mentalmente para essa batalha?
Essa empreitada?
Não?
Não, acho que sim. Então, eu confio muito no meu time.
É isso? É isso aí mesmo.
Cara, eu acho que tipo assim, a gente vai ter vários obstáculos, sabe? Pô, teremos vários obstáculos, mas acho que por foco e determinação, nós conseguimos chegar lá.
Pessoal, aí vai ter um mini jogo agora. Sabe o jogo de Anquipô? Tesoura, pedra, papel? Aí cada um de vocês vai competir com o produtor. Se quem ganhar, vai ganhar 5.000 won para poder gastar na praia.
Quantas vezes?